The sharp edge of the dumpster cut into Katie Monroe's palm as she hoisted herself up for the third time that evening. Below her, the wet streets of downtown Portland reflected the gray October sky. Her small hand disappeared into the metal container, searching through discarded food containers and soggy newspapers. Her fingers closed around the familiar shape of a plastic bottle. Another 10 cents. She dropped back to the ground, her worn sneakers splashing in a puddle. The bottle went into her cloth bag, which now held 23 containers. $2.30. She needed so much more. Katie wiped her hands on her jeans and looked down the alley. 3 more dumpsters waited. Her stomach growled, but she pushed the hunger aside. Grandmother Helen had not eaten much today either. The medicine they needed cost $63. Katie had saved $18.40 so far. Every bottle mattered. A car drove past the alley entrance, and Katie ducked behind the dumpster. Some people yelled at her for going through trash. Others looked away quickly, uncomfortable. She had learned to stay invisible. The next dumpster held a treasure. Someone had thrown away an entire case of soda bottles. Katie's heart raced as she carefully extracted each one. 12 bottles. $1.20. She counted them twice to be sure, her chapped fingers trembling in the cold air. By the time Katie finished her route, darkness had settled over the city. Her bag bulged with 47 containers. $4.70 for 3 hours of work. She walked the 6 blocks to the redemption center, her shoulder aching from the weight. The man at the counter did not smile, but he was not mean either. He counted her bottles efficiently and handed her the money. Katie folded the bills carefully and placed them in the zippered pocket of her jacket. She would add them to the coffee can hidden under her bed when she got home. The apartment building where Katie and Helen lived sat on the edge of a neighborhood that was slowly crumbling. Paint peeled from the walls. The elevator had not worked in 2 years. Katie climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, her legs heavy with exhaustion. She unlocked the door quietly. The small apartment was dark except for a lamp in the corner. Helen lay on the sofa, covered with 2 thin blankets. Her breathing sounded rough and labored. Katie set down her bag and went to her grandmother. Helen's forehead felt too warm. The fever had returned. Katie. Helen's eyes opened slightly. You are home. I am home, Grandma. How do you feel? Better now that you are here. Helen managed a weak smile. Did you have dinner? I had something at school. Katie lied smoothly. The school lunch had been 7 hours ago, but Helen did not need to worry about that. Are you hungry? I can make soup. Not right now, sweetheart. Maybe later. Katie helped Helen sit up and gave her water. The medicine bottle on the side table was almost empty. 3 pills left. Maybe 4 days if they stretched them. Then what? After Helen fell back asleep, Katie went to her small bedroom. She pulled out the coffee can from under her bed and emptied her pockets. She counted all the money carefully. $23.10 total. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Katie looked at her homework sitting on the desk. Math problems and a book report. She was tired, but she opened her notebook anyway. School mattered. Her grandmother always said education was the way forward. Katie would not let her down. As she worked through the math problems, her mind wandered. How could she collect more bottles? Maybe she could wake up earlier and search before school. Maybe she could find new routes with more dumpsters. The next morning, Katie woke before dawn. She dressed quietly and grabbed her bag. Helen still slept on the sofa. Katie left a note saying she had gone to school early for a study group. The streets were quiet in the early morning. Katie found a new area behind a row of restaurants. The pickings were good. By the time she had to head to school, she had collected 32 bottles. $3.20. At school, Katie struggled to focus. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, noticed her yawning during English class. Katie, is everything okay at home? Yes. I just stayed up late reading. Another lie. Katie was getting good at them. After school, Katie returned to her regular route. She worked systematically, checking every dumpster and trash can. Some days she found a lot. Some days almost nothing. Today was somewhere in between. As evening approached, Katie made her way to the redemption center. She had collected enough for another $3.50. Every dollar brought her closer to the medicine. But when Katie counted the money that night, a sinking feeling hit her. At this rate, it would take 2 more weeks to save enough. Helen did not have 2 weeks. The cough was getting worse. Sometimes Helen struggled just to breathe. Katie sat on her bed and tried not to cry. She was only 12 years old. She should not have to carry this burden. But there was no one else. Her parents had died in a car accident 4 years ago. Helen was all she had. And Helen was slipping away. The next 3 days passed in a blur. School, bottles, redemption center, home. Katie's hands grew rough from digging through trash. Her back ached constantly. But she kept going. On Thursday evening, Katie worked her way down a new street. Behind a grocery store, she found several bags of bottles that someone had left near the dumpster. She was sorting through them when she noticed something wedged between 2 trash bags. A wallet. Katie picked it up carefully. It was made of brown leather, expensive looking. She opened it slowly. Inside were credit cards, a driver's license, and a thick stack of cash. Katie's hands shook as she looked at the bills. 20s, 50s, even some hundreds. More money than she had ever seen in her life. The driver's license showed a man's face. Thomas Bradford. The address listed was in the West Hills neighborhood. Katie knew that area. Big houses. Wealthy people. Katie looked at the money again. She could take it. No one would know. This money would pay for her grandmother's medicine 10 times over. It would buy food. It would pay the rent they owed. But even as the thoughts entered her mind, Katie knew she could not do it. Her grandmother had taught her better than that. Honesty mattered. Integrity mattered. Even when things were hard. Katie closed the wallet and looked at the address again. She would return it tomorrow. That night, Katie lay awake for a long time. She thought about the wallet. She thought about the medicine. She thought about her grandmother's labored breathing in the next room. She had made her choice. She would return the wallet. It was the right thing to do. But as Katie finally drifted to sleep, one question haunted her. Would doing the right thing cost her grandmother's life? What would you do if you found a wallet full of money while your loved one was dying? Drop a comment below and subscribe to see how Katie's choice changes everything. Friday morning arrived with heavy rain. Katie woke to the sound of water pelting against the window. She checked on Helen, who was sleeping but breathing easier than yesterday. That was something. Katie retrieved the wallet from where she had hidden it in her desk drawer. In the morning light, it looked even more expensive. The leather was soft and well-made. The credit cards were platinum and black, the kind Katie had only seen in commercials. She counted the cash. $3,400. Her stomach twisted. This money could solve all their problems. But it was not hers. The address on the driver's license was 2847 Westmorn Drive. Katie had never been to that neighborhood, but she knew how to get there. 2 buses and about an hour of travel. Katie made breakfast for Helen. Oatmeal with a little brown sugar. Helen managed half a bowl before she was too tired to continue. I need to run an errand today, Grandma, Katie said as she washed the dishes. I will be back by dinner time. An errand? What kind of errand? Helen's voice was weak but curious. Just something I need to take care of. Nothing to worry about. Helen studied her granddaughter's face. Katie Monroe, you are keeping secrets from me. Good secrets, Grandma. I promise. Katie helped Helen back to the sofa and made sure she had water and her medicine within reach. Then she put the wallet in her backpack, pulled on her rain jacket, and headed out. The first bus took 40 minutes. Katie watched the neighborhoods change as they traveled west. The buildings became newer. The cars became nicer. The streets became cleaner. She transferred to the second bus, which climbed into the hills. Through the rain-streaked windows, Katie saw large houses set back from the road. Lawns were green and manicured. Basketball hoops stood in wide driveways. Katie got off at Westmorn Drive and checked the address again. 2847. She walked up the street, her sneakers squelching in the rain. The houses here were not just big. They were huge. Mansions, really. Number 2847 sat behind a low stone wall. The house was 3 stories tall, with white columns and large windows. A circular driveway led to the front entrance. Katie's entire apartment building could probably fit inside this house. She stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, suddenly nervous. What if they did not believe she found the wallet? What if they thought she stole it? What if they called the police? But Katie had come this far. She walked up the driveway and climbed the steps to the front door. A doorbell camera pointed at her. She pressed the button and waited. Footsteps approached from inside. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 50s wearing a gray uniform. A housekeeper, Katie guessed. "Can I help you?" The woman's tone was not unkind, but she clearly wondered what a wet, bedraggled girl was doing on the doorstep. "I found something that belongs to Mr. Bradford. A wallet. I wanted to return it." The woman's eyebrows rose. "Coming out of the rain, dear. Wait here." Katie stepped into a vast entryway. A chandelier hung overhead. The floors were marble. A curved staircase swept up to the second floor. Everything was spotless and elegant. The housekeeper disappeared down a hallway. Katie heard voices, then footsteps returning. A man appeared. Thomas Bradford looked different from his driver's license photo. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, with gray hair and tired blue eyes. He wore khaki pants and a blue sweater. He looked at Katie with confusion. "Margaret says you found my wallet." Katie pulled the wallet from her backpack and held it out. "I found it yesterday behind the grocery store on Morrison Street. Your driver's license was inside, so I came to return it." Thomas took the wallet slowly. He opened it and looked inside. His face registered surprise, then something else. Relief. Disbelief. "Everything is here," he said quietly. "The cash, the cards, everything." "Yes, sir. I did not take anything." Thomas looked at Katie more carefully. He noticed her worn clothes, her thin frame, her calloused hands. "What is your name?" "Katie Monroe, sir." "How old are you, Katie?" 12. Thomas was silent for a moment. He looked at the wallet again, then back at Katie. "You found $3,000 and brought it back." "It is not my money, sir. Most people would have kept it." Katie shifted her weight uncomfortably. "My grandmother taught me better than that." "Where do you live, Katie?" "Off Division Street, near the river." Thomas knew that area. It was one of the poorest sections of Portland. He looked at this young girl who had traveled across the city in the rain to return his wallet. "Why were you behind a grocery store on Morrison Street?" Katie hesitated. She did not want to explain about the bottles. But something in Thomas Bradford's face made her trust him. "I collect bottles and cans for the deposit money. My grandmother is sick, and we need money for her medicine." The words hung in the air. Thomas felt something shift inside his chest. This child was desperate for money, yet she had returned his wallet untouched. "Come into the living room," Thomas said. "Please. Margaret, could you bring some tea and something to eat?" "I should probably get home," Katie said. "Please. Just for a few minutes. I want to hear more about this." Katie followed Thomas into a large living room. Windows overlooked a garden. Comfortable furniture was arranged around a fireplace. Everything spoke of wealth and comfort. Thomas gestured for Katie to sit on a sofa. He sat across from her in an armchair. "Tell me about your grandmother." Katie explained about the illness, the lack of insurance, the medicine they could not afford. She described their apartment, though she left out some of the worst details. She talked about collecting bottles, about trying to save enough money. As she talked, Thomas felt his eyes growing wet. This child was carrying the weight of the world on her small shoulders. Margaret brought tea and sandwiches. Katie tried to refuse the food, but Margaret insisted. The sandwich was the best thing Katie had eaten in weeks. She tried not to eat too fast, but she was so hungry. "What medicine does your grandmother need?" Thomas asked. Katie pulled a crumpled prescription from her jacket pocket. She had been carrying it for weeks, hoping to fill it someday soon. Thomas looked at the prescription, then at Katie. "How much does this cost?" $63 for a month's supply. Thomas felt something break inside him. $63. The cost of a nice dinner. The cost of filling his car with gas. To this child, it might as well have been $1 million. "Katie, I want to help you." "No, sir. I just came to return your wallet. I do not need anything. But I want to help. You could have kept this money. You did not. That says something about who you are." Please let me help your grandmother. Katie shook her head. My grandmother would not want me to take charity. Thomas leaned forward. This is not charity. This is gratitude. You returned something valuable to me. Let me return the favor. But I was just doing what was right. Exactly. And doing what is right should be rewarded. Thomas paused, choosing his words carefully. I lost my daughter 3 years ago. Cancer. She was 21 years old. Her name was Rachel. Katie looked at Thomas and saw the pain in his eyes. Rachel was a lot like you, Thomas continued. She always tried to do the right thing. She volunteered at shelters. She helped people. And when she got sick, I would have given anything, everything I had, to save her. But money could not fix it. Thomas's voice broke slightly. He cleared his throat. Now I have this money, this house, all these things. And they feel empty without her. But you, Katie, you have a grandmother who can be saved. Let me help. Please. Katie felt tears streaming down her face. She thought about Helen lying on the sofa, struggling to breathe. She thought about the medicine running out. She thought about what would happen if she said no. Okay, Katie whispered. Thank you. Thomas stood up quickly, as if afraid she might change her mind. Where is the pharmacy? I will go right now. Walgreens on Hawthorne Street. Give me the prescription. Margaret will drive you home, and I will meet you there with the medicine. Thomas was already pulling out his phone. Actually, I will do better than that. I will arrange for a doctor to visit your grandmother today. A doctor? That costs too much. Let me worry about the cost. What is your address? Katie gave him the information. Everything was happening so fast. 20 minutes ago, she had been standing in the rain outside this house. Now a doctor was coming to see her grandmother. Margaret drove Katie home in a clean, comfortable car. Katie sat in the back seat, her mind spinning. She kept expecting to wake up and find this was all a dream. When they pulled up to her apartment building, Margaret looked at the peeling paint and broken windows. She did not say anything, but Katie saw the concern on her face. Thank you for the ride, Katie said. Mr. Bradford will be here soon with the medicine, Margaret said gently. You did a good thing today, sweetheart. Katie climbed the stairs to her apartment. Her hands shook as she unlocked the door. Helen was awake, sitting up on the sofa. Katie, where have you been? I was worried. Katie sat down next to her grandmother. Grandma, something happened. Something good. And she told her everything. Helen listened to Katie's story with wide eyes. When Katie finished, Helen was quiet for a long moment. You returned $3,000. I had to, Grandma. It was not mine. Helen pulled Katie into a gentle hug. You are a good girl. Your parents would be so proud of you. A knock at the door interrupted them. Katie jumped up to answer it. Thomas Bradford stood in the hallway, carrying a pharmacy bag and looking slightly out of breath from climbing the stairs. Hello again, Katie. Is this a good time? Please come in, Mr. Bradford. Thomas entered the small apartment. He tried not to show his shock at the conditions. The space was clean but sparse. Furniture was old and worn. The walls needed paint. A bucket sat in the corner, catching drips from a leak in the ceiling. Helen struggled to stand, but Thomas waved her back down. Please, do not get up. You must be Katie's grandmother. Helen Monroe. I understand we have you to thank for this medicine. Thomas set the pharmacy bag on the coffee table. Your granddaughter has a level of integrity that is rare in this world. Helping her is the least I can do. He pulled out the medicine bottle and handed it to Helen. I also took the liberty of calling my personal physician. Dr. Patricia Simmons will be here within the hour. She is one of the best doctors in Portland. Helen looked at the medicine, then at Thomas. Tears filled her eyes. Sir, I do not know how to thank you. No thanks needed. Really. But the cost. A doctor's visit, this medicine. We cannot possibly repay you. I do not want repayment. Thomas sat down in a chair across from the sofa. May I be honest with you both? Helen nodded. I have been very lost since my daughter died, Thomas said slowly. I have been going through the motions of living, but not really living. Work, home, sleep, Repeat. Nothing brought me joy. Nothing felt meaningful. He looked at Katie. Then this young lady appeared on my doorstep. She reminded me that good people still exist. That integrity still matters. That kindness is still alive in the world. Thomas's voice grew stronger. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something. Purpose. Connection. Hope. You gave me that gift. So please, let me give something back. Helen wiped her eyes. You are a kind man, Mr. Bradford. Call me Thomas, please. They talked while waiting for the doctor. Thomas learned that Helen had been a teacher before retiring. Katie's parents had died when a drunk driver ran a red light. Helen took Katie in without hesitation, even though her own health was already declining. Katie is my whole world, Helen said, watching her granddaughter in the kitchen making tea. She is such a good child. She tries so hard to take care of me. No 12-year-old should have that burden. She will not have to carry it alone anymore, Thomas said firmly. Dr. Simmons arrived exactly on time. She was a woman in her 40s with a calm, professional manner. She examined Helen thoroughly, asking detailed questions about symptoms and medical history. After the examination, Dr. Simmons spoke with Helen, Katie, and Thomas together. Mrs. Monroe has a serious respiratory infection that has gone untreated for too long. The medicine will help, but she needs more than that. She needs proper nutrition, rest, and follow-up care. She also needs some tests to make sure there is no permanent lung damage. What kind of tests? Katie asked worriedly. A chest x-ray, some blood work. Nothing painful. But they need to be done at a hospital. I will arrange it, Thomas said immediately. Whatever she needs. Dr. Simmons looked at him, then at Helen. Mr. Bradford is right. With proper care, I expect Mrs. Monroe will make a full recovery. But she needs to start treatment right away. When? Helen asked. I can have you admitted to Good Samaritan Hospital this evening. They will run the tests and keep you for observation. Probably 2 or 3 days. Helen looked at Katie with concern. I cannot leave Katie alone. I will stay with her, Thomas said. The words came out before he even thought about them. If that is okay with both of you. Katie can stay at my house where there is plenty of room. Margaret, my housekeeper, will be there. She will make sure Katie is comfortable. Katie and Helen looked at each other. The idea seemed strange, but what choice did they have? Grandma should go to the hospital if she needs to, Katie said. I will be okay. You are sure? Helen asked. I am sure. Dr. Simmons made some calls. An ambulance arrived 30 minutes later. Helen was loaded onto a gurney. She held Katie's hand as they carried her down the stairs. Be good for Mr. Bradford, Helen said. Mind your manners. I will, Grandma. You just focus on getting better. Katie rode in the ambulance with Helen. Thomas followed in his car. At the hospital, they got Helen checked in and settled in a room. Nurses came and went, efficient and kind. Finally, a nurse suggested that Katie go home and get some rest. Helen was sleeping soundly now, the medicine already starting to work. Thomas drove Katie back to the apartment so she could pack a bag. Then they headed to his house in the West Hills. In daylight, the house looked even larger. Thomas led Katie inside and showed her to a bedroom on the second floor. The room was bigger than Katie's entire apartment. A large bed with a white comforter sat against one wall. Windows overlooked the garden. This was Rachel's room, Thomas said quietly. I think she would like you staying here. Katie set down her bag and looked around. The room was beautiful but felt sad somehow. Like it was waiting for someone who would never return. Make yourself at home, Thomas said. The bathroom is through that door. Margaret will call us when dinner is ready. After Thomas left, Katie sat on the bed. The mattress was soft, the pillows fluffy. She thought about Helen in the hospital bed. She thought about how much had changed in just one day. She pulled out her phone and sent a text to Helen's phone, knowing a nurse might read it to her. I love you, Grandma. Everything is going to be okay. Dinner was served in a large dining room. Margaret had made chicken, vegetables, and mashed potatoes. Katie tried to use proper manners, the way Helen had taught her. Thomas asked about school, about Katie's interests, about her favorite subjects. He was easy to talk to. Katie found herself relaxing. What do you want to be when you grow up? Thomas asked. A doctor, maybe. Or a teacher like my grandmother. I want to help people. I think you will be excellent at whatever you choose to do. After dinner, Thomas showed Katie the library. Floor-to-ceiling shelves held thousands of books. Katie's eyes went wide. You can read any of them you like, Thomas said. Katie pulled out a few books and carried them back to Rachel's room. She got ready for bed, brushed her teeth, and climbed under the covers. The bed was incredibly comfortable. The house was quiet and warm. But Katie could not sleep. She kept thinking about her grandmother alone in the hospital. She kept thinking about how strange it was to be in this big house with a man she barely knew. A soft knock came at the door. Katie, are you awake? Yes, Mr. Bradford. Thomas opened the door slightly. I just got a call from the hospital. Your grandmother is resting well. The tests show her infection is responding to treatment. Dr. Simmons is very optimistic. Katie felt a weight lift from her chest. Really? Really? She should be able to come home in 2 or 3 days. Thank you for telling me. And thank you for everything today. I do not know how to repay you. Thomas stepped into the room and sat in a chair near the bed. You know what Rachel used to say? She said the best way to repay kindness is to pass it on to someone else. You already did that by returning my wallet. So the debt is paid. I just did what my grandmother taught me. Your grandmother raised you well. Thomas stood up. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we can visit Helen at the hospital. Mr. Bradford, can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you being so nice to us? People do not usually help strangers like this. Thomas was quiet for a moment. I think because you reminded me of something I had forgotten. You reminded me that there is still goodness in the world, and that maybe I can be part of that goodness instead of just going through the motions of living. He walked to the door, then turned back. Sleep well, Katie. You are safe here. After he left, Katie lay in the darkness. For the first time in months, she felt hope. Real, genuine hope that things might actually be okay. She thought about Thomas Bradford and his sad eyes. She thought about how returning that wallet had changed both their lives. She thought about how her grandmother always said doing the right thing mattered, even when it was hard. Helen had been right all along. Katie pulled the blankets up to her chin and closed her eyes. Tomorrow she would see her grandmother at the hospital. Tomorrow Helen would be one day closer to being healthy again. For now, Katie let herself rest. The weight she had been carrying for so long felt just a little bit lighter. Katie woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory flooded back. The wallet. Thomas Bradford. Helen in the hospital. She checked her phone. A text from the hospital said Helen had a good night and was eating breakfast. Katie's shoulders relaxed. Her grandmother was really getting better. A knock at the door, then Margaret's voice. Katie, dear, breakfast is ready when you are. Katie dressed quickly and went downstairs. The dining room table held plates of eggs, bacon, toast, fruit, and orange juice. Katie had not seen this much food in one place in years. Eat as much as you like, Margaret said warmly. You need to put some meat on those bones. Katie filled her plate, trying not to take too much. But Margaret kept adding more food, insisting Katie needed a proper breakfast. Thomas appeared in jeans and a sweater. Good morning, Katie. Ready to visit your grandmother after breakfast? Yes, please. They ate together, and then Thomas drove Katie to Good Samaritan Hospital. Helen's room was on the 4th floor. When they walked in, Katie gasped. Her grandmother looked different. Better. Color had returned to her cheeks. She sat propped up in bed, breathing easily. Katie. Helen held out her arms. Katie rushed over and hugged her carefully. You look so much better, Grandma. I feel better. The medicine is working. And the food here is quite good. Helen smiled at Thomas. Thank you for bringing her. My pleasure. How are you feeling today? Like a new woman. The doctors say the infection is clearing up nicely. I might be able to go home tomorrow or the next day. Dr. Simmons entered the room with a clipboard. Good morning, everyone. I have the test results. She looked at Helen. The good news is there is no permanent lung damage. The infection is responding well to antibiotics. You will need to continue the medication for 2 weeks, but I expect a full recovery." "That is wonderful," Helen said, her eyes filling with tears. "However," Dr. Simmons continued, "I am concerned about the conditions that led to this situation. Mrs. Monroe, when was the last time you saw a doctor?" Helen looked down. 5 years ago, maybe. You need regular checkups, especially at your age. And you need to be able to afford your medications. Do you have insurance?" "No. I could not afford it after I retired." Dr. Simmons looked at Thomas. They seemed to have a silent conversation. Then Thomas spoke up. "I would like to help with that, if you will allow me." "Mr. Bradford, you have already done so much," Helen protested. "Please, hear me out." Thomas pulled a chair close to Helen's bed. "Yesterday, Katie returned my wallet with $3,000 inside. She could have kept that money. She desperately needed that money. But she did not take a single dollar." Thomas's voice grew emotional. "Do you know how rare that is? How special? In a world where people lie and cheat and steal, this 12-year-old child chose honesty over desperation. That means something." He looked at Helen directly. "I want to set up a fund for your medical expenses. Insurance, medications, doctor visits, everything you need. It is not charity. It is gratitude for raising such an exceptional human being." "That is too much," Helen whispered. "It is not nearly enough." Thomas reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "I also want to give you this." Helen opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check for $10,000. "Mr. Bradford, I cannot accept this." "Yes, you can. And you will." Thomas's voice was firm but kind. "Listen to me, please. After my daughter died, I stopped caring about money. It piled up in accounts. I barely touched it. What good is wealth if you do not use it to make a difference?" He gestured around the hospital room. "You were dying because you could not afford medicine. Katie was digging through trash trying to save you. That is not right. That is not the world Rachel would have wanted. That is not the world I want to live in." Thomas stood up and paced to the window. "Let me do this. Let me help. It will give my money purpose. It will give my life purpose. Please." Katie watched her grandmother struggle with the decision. Helen had always been proud, always self-sufficient. But she was also practical. And this was about more than pride now. "Why?" Helen finally asked. "Why us? There are so many people who need help." "Because Katie reminded me what goodness looks like. Because she gave me hope again." Thomas turned from the window. "And maybe because helping you helps me heal." Helen looked at the check, then at Katie, then at Thomas. Slowly, she nodded. "We accept your help. With gratitude. Thank you, Mr. Bradford." Thomas smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Thank you for letting me help. And please, call me Thomas." Dr. Simmons cleared her throat. "I will get the paperwork started for insurance enrollment. Mrs. Monroe, you should be discharged tomorrow. I want to see you back in 2 weeks for follow-up." After the doctor left, they talked for over an hour. Helen told Thomas stories about Katie's childhood, about her parents, about the life they had built together. Thomas shared memories of Rachel, some funny, some sad. Katie listened to them both, amazed at how easily they connected. When visiting hours ended, Thomas promised to return the next day. On the drive back to his house, he was quiet. "Are you okay?" Katie asked. "I am more than okay," Thomas said. "For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I have a purpose again. Like maybe Rachel's death was not meaningless if it taught me to appreciate people like you and your grandmother." That evening, Thomas made phone calls. He arranged for insurance coverage for Helen. He contacted a home repair service about fixing the leak in their apartment ceiling and repainting the walls. He set up a grocery delivery service for fresh food. Katie watched him work with growing amazement. He was not just throwing money at problems. He was genuinely invested in their lives. "Mr. Bradford, why are you doing all of this?" Thomas set down his phone. "Can I tell you something, Katie? When Rachel died, I felt like dying too. I went through the motions. I worked, I came home, I existed. But I did not live. Everything felt gray and empty. He looked at Katie with intensity. Then you showed up at my door. This small, determined girl who chose to do the right thing even when it cost her everything. You reminded me that life still has meaning. That people still have goodness in them. Thomas's voice cracked slightly. You gave me a reason to wake up tomorrow. You gave me a way to honor Rachel's memory by helping people the way she always wanted to. So no, this is not charity. This is me reclaiming my life. Katie felt tears running down her cheeks. I just returned a wallet. You did so much more than that. The next morning, they picked up Helen from the hospital. She was weak but improving steadily. Thomas drove them to their apartment building, but when they arrived, Helen gasped. The building's exterior had been painted. New windows had been installed. The lobby was clean and renovated. What happened, eh? Helen asked. I may have made a few calls, Thomas said casually. Spoke to the building owner. Convinced him that proper maintenance was in his best interest. They climbed the stairs, which now had a new railing. When Helen opened the door to their apartment, she froze. The space had been transformed. The ceiling was repaired and painted. The walls were a fresh, clean white. New furniture replaced the worn pieces. The small kitchen had new appliances. Curtains hung in the windows. Thomas, you did not have to do this, Helen said, tears streaming down her face. I wanted to. You should have a comfortable place to recover. Katie walked through the apartment in wonder. Her bedroom had a new bed, a real desk, and a bookshelf. The bathroom had been updated. Everything was clean and bright and new. I do not know what to say, Helen whispered. Say you will focus on getting healthy, Thomas replied. That is all I ask. Over the next week, Thomas visited every day. He brought groceries, checked on Helen's recovery, and talked with them for hours. He and Helen became friends, bonding over their shared love for Katie and their mutual experience of loss. Katie returned to school, but her life was completely different now. She no longer spent her evenings collecting bottles. Instead, she did homework, read books, and helped her grandmother with light chores. One evening, as Thomas was getting ready to leave, Helen stopped him. Thomas, I want to talk to you about something. Of course. Helen gestured for him to sit. Katie joined them. You have been so generous to us. You have given us more than we could ever repay. But I worry about you. Worry about me. Yes. You are doing all of this to help us, which is wonderful. But what about you? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you addressing your grief? Thomas was quiet for a moment. I have been better lately. Helping you has helped me. That is good. But you need more than that. Have you talked to anyone about losing Rachel? A counselor? A support group? I tried counseling for a few months. It did not really help. Helen leaned forward. Sometimes we need to try more than once. Sometimes we need to find the right fit. I lost my daughter and son-in-law 4 years ago. The pain nearly destroyed me. But I found a grief support group that helped me process it. I did not know you went to a support group, Katie said. 3 months ago, I did not care if I lived or died. I was just existing, waiting for time to pass. But now, I have something to look forward to. I have people I care about. I have purpose. He looked at Katie. All because a 12-year-old girl chose honesty over desperation. I am glad I found your wallet, Katie said softly. So am I. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. After Thomas left, Helen pulled Katie close. You did good, sweetheart. Not just by returning the wallet, but by being yourself. Your kindness brought light into a man's darkness. Katie nestled against her grandmother. Do you think Mom and Dad would be proud? I know they would. I am proud every single day. Outside, Thomas sat in his car for a moment before starting the engine. He looked back at the apartment building, now renovated and safe. Light glowed from Helen and Katie's windows. For the first time since Rachel died, Thomas felt genuine happiness. Not the absence of pain, but real joy mixed in with the grief. These two people, a grandmother and her granddaughter, had saved his life without even knowing it. He pulled out his phone and looked at a photo of Rachel. I think you would like them, he said to the image. I think you would approve of what I am doing. I hope I am making you proud." The photo did not answer, of course. But Thomas felt a sense of peace. He was honoring Rachel's memory in the best way he knew how. By being kind. By helping people who needed help. By choosing to live again instead of just exist. He started the car and drove home through the Portland streets. Tomorrow he would go to work. Tomorrow he would see Katie at the office. Tomorrow he would call Helen to check on her recovery. Tomorrow held promise. And that was something Thomas had not felt in a very long time. December arrived with cold rain and early darkness. But inside the Bradford house and the Monroe apartment, warmth and light prevailed. Helen's health improved steadily. The respiratory infection cleared completely. Her energy returned. She started taking daily walks around the neighborhood, building up her strength. Dr. Simmons was pleased with her progress. "You are doing remarkably well, Mrs. Monroe. The insurance Mr. Bradford arranged is excellent. We can schedule regular checkups to keep you healthy." "I feel like I got a second chance at life," Helen told the doctor. "I plan to make the most of it." Katie flourished at her part-time job. She learned how the business operated, helped organize files, and even started helping with basic computer tasks. The office employees grew fond of her. "That girl is special," Mrs. Chen told Thomas one afternoon. "Smart as a whip and twice as determined. She is going places." Thomas agreed. He watched Katie work with pride. She reminded him so much of Rachel, who had also been focused and driven at that age. One Saturday morning, Thomas picked up Helen and Katie for their now regular breakfast together. Over pancakes at a diner near their apartment, Helen brought up an idea. "I have been thinking," Helen said. "I spent 30 years teaching before I retired. I miss it. And I have been reading about the community center near us. They need volunteers for a reading program." "That sounds perfect for you," Thomas said. "When do you start?" "Next week, if Dr. Simmons approves. It would just be a few hours, twice a week, helping children who struggle with reading." "Grandma would be amazing at that," Katie added. "She used to help me with reading all the time when I was little." Thomas smiled. "See, you are already paying it forward. I help you, you help others. That is how it should work." "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that," Helen said. "The community center needs funding. They barely have enough money for books and supplies. I was wondering if you might consider making a donation." "I would be happy to. What do they need?" Helen pulled out a list she had prepared. New books for different reading levels. Some computer tablets for learning programs. Art supplies for the after-school program. Maybe some furniture that is not falling apart. Thomas looked at the list. "This is what, maybe $5,000 worth of stuff." "About that, yes. I know it is a lot to ask." "It is not a lot at all. I will write a check on Monday." Thomas paused. "Actually, I have a better idea. Let me visit the center first. If I am going to donate, I want to see where the money is going and if there are other needs they have not mentioned." Helen beamed. "That would be wonderful. The director, Ms. Johnson, would love to meet you." The following Tuesday, Thomas accompanied Helen to the Riverside Community Center. The building was old but clean. Children's artwork covered the walls. The smell of baking cookies drifted from a kitchen. Ms. Johnson was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and a warm smile. She showed them around the facility. There was a gym where kids played basketball, a computer lab with outdated equipment, a library with sparse shelves, and several classrooms. "We serve about 200 families in this neighborhood," Ms. Johnson explained. "Most are struggling financially. We provide after-school programs, meals, tutoring, and a safe place for kids to go. But our funding is limited. We rely on donations and volunteers." Thomas asked questions as they toured. He learned that the roof leaked, the heating system was unreliable, and they desperately needed more staff. How much would it cost to fix the roof and heating? Thomas asked. Ms. Johnson pulled out a folder with contractor estimates. The roof is about $20,000. The heating system is another $15,000. We have been trying to raise money for 2 years, but we only have about $8,000 saved so far. Thomas looked at the children in the gym, laughing and playing. He thought about Katie collecting bottles. He thought about how one person's generosity could change lives. I will cover both repairs, Thomas said. The roof and the heating. And the $5,000 for books and supplies Helen mentioned. Consider it done. Ms. Johnson's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Bradford, that is incredibly generous. Are you sure? I am sure. And I want to do more. I want to understand this community's needs better. Would you be willing to sit down with me and make a comprehensive list of improvements needed? Absolutely. When? How about next week? I will bring my accountant. We can figure out a proper budget. After they left the community center, Helen squeezed Thomas's arm. You are changing lives. You know that. I am just using money that was sitting in accounts doing nothing. Rachel would have wanted this. She always cared about helping people who needed help. Katie, who had come along after finishing school, looked thoughtful. Mr. Bradford, do you think the community center needs youth volunteers? I could help out on weekends. I think that is a great idea, Thomas said. You could help with the reading program or maybe organize a bottle recycling program to raise additional funds. Katie's eyes lit up. A recycling program. That is perfect. I know everything about collecting bottles. Over the next few weeks, plans took shape. Thomas donated $40,000 to the Riverside Community Center for immediate repairs. He also set up a monthly donation to cover ongoing expenses. Helen started volunteering with the reading program twice a week. She worked with children who struggled, patiently helping them sound out words and discover the joy of books. Katie organized a recycling program at the center. She taught other kids how to collect bottles and cans properly. The program raised several $100s a month, which the center used for extra supplies and activities. Thomas attended the Tuesday Grief Support Group faithfully. He shared his progress with the group, telling them how helping others was helping him heal. I spent 3 years in darkness, Thomas told the group one evening. I pushed everyone away. I went through the motions but felt nothing. Then these two people came into my life and reminded me what matters. Family, connection, purpose. I am grateful every day. One of the other group members, a man named Jack who had lost his wife, spoke up. You inspired me, Thomas. I have been volunteering at a food bank now. It feels good to help people. Thomas smiled. The ripple effect of kindness was spreading. At Bradford Industries, Thomas's employees noticed the change in him. He smiled more. He engaged with people instead of hiding in his office. The workplace atmosphere improved. Mrs. Chen approached Thomas one afternoon. So, I wanted to say that whatever changed in your life these past few months, it has been good. You seem happy. I am happy, Thomas confirmed. For the first time in years, I am actually happy. In mid-December, Thomas had lunch with Katie at the office. She had just finished her shift, and they sat in the break room eating sandwiches. How is school going? Thomas asked. Really good. I got an A on my math test and my teacher says I might qualify for advanced placement next year. That is wonderful. You are very smart, Katie. I try hard. Grandma always says education is the key to a better life. Thomas set down his sandwich. Katie, I have been thinking about your future. College is expensive. I want to set up an education fund for you. When you graduate high school, you will have money for college. Katie's eyes widened. Really? But that is so far away. And it must cost so much. It does cost a lot. But you are worth it. You have dreams of becoming a doctor or teacher. You should be able to pursue those dreams without worrying about money. I do not know what to say. Say you will work hard and make the most of the opportunity. I will. I promise I will. Thomas felt emotion welling up. He thought about Rachel, who never got to finish college. He thought about all the dreams she never got to achieve. Helping Katie pursue her dreams felt like honoring Rachel's memory. That evening, Thomas visited the apartment with papers from his lawyer. He had established an education trust fund for Katie with $100,000. The money would be available when Katie turned 18 for college expenses. Helen cried when she saw the papers. Thomas, this is too much. You have already done so much. It is not too much. It is exactly right. Thomas handed Helen another envelope. And this is for you. Inside was a deed. Helen looked at it in confusion. What is this? I bought the apartment building you live in. The previous owner was not maintaining it properly. I convinced him to sell. Now I own it, and I am deeding your apartment to you. You own it outright. No more rent. It is yours. Helen could not speak. Katie hugged her grandmother as happy tears flowed. You both gave me my life back, Thomas said softly. This is the least I can do. You will always have a home. You will never have to worry about housing again. Thomas Bradford, you are a blessing, Helen finally managed to say. A true blessing. No. You are the blessing. You and Katie. You saved me. They spent the evening together, talking and laughing. Thomas told stories about Rachel. Helen shared memories of Katie's parents. Katie made hot chocolate, and they watched an old movie on television. As Thomas drove home that night, he felt contentment settle over him like a warm blanket. The empty house did not feel quite so empty anymore. He had people in his life who mattered. He had purpose and meaning. His phone rang. It was his son, Michael, calling from Boston. Dad? It is me. Thomas pulled over, shocked. He had not talked to Michael in over a year. They had grown distant after Rachel's death, their shared grief pushing them apart instead of bringing them together. Michael, it is good to hear your voice. I saw an article online about you and the community center donation, and there was something about a young girl who returned your wallet. Michael paused. Dad, what has been going on? Thomas told him everything. About losing the wallet. About Katie returning it. About Helen's illness. About how helping them had pulled him out of his depression. You sound different, Michael said when Thomas finished. You sound like yourself again. I feel like myself again. I feel alive. I want to visit. For Christmas. If that is okay. Thomas felt his throat tighten. I would love that. I have missed you, son. I have missed you too, Dad. I am sorry I stayed away so long. After Rachel died, I did not know how to talk to you. We were both so broken. I understand. I pushed you away. That was wrong. But we can fix this. Come home for Christmas. Please. I will book a flight tomorrow. After they hung up, Thomas sat in his car, overwhelmed with emotion. His son was coming home. His family was healing. All because a 12-year-old girl had chosen honesty over desperation. Thomas looked up at the night sky. Thank you, Rachel, he whispered. Thank you for sending Katie to me. Thank you for giving me another chance at life. The stars offered no answer, but Thomas felt peace. He started the car and drove home, already planning for Christmas. It would be the first real Christmas he had celebrated in 3 years. And it would be perfect. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. Snow had fallen overnight, rare for Portland, covering the city in white. At the Bradford house, Thomas stood in the kitchen watching Margaret prepare the turkey. The house smelled of pine from a large Christmas tree in the living room. Wrapped presents sat beneath it, more than Thomas had bought in years. The doorbell rang. Thomas hurried to answer it, his heart pounding with anticipation. Michael stood on the doorstep, older and thinner than Thomas remembered, but smiling. Father and son looked at each other for a long moment, then embraced. Welcome home, son. It is good to be home, Dad. They spent the morning catching up. Michael worked as a lawyer in Boston. He had been engaged, but the relationship ended. He admitted he had been struggling since Rachel's death. I threw myself into work, Michael said. Worked 70-hour weeks. Avoided dealing with feelings. Sound familiar? Thomas nodded. I did the same thing. Until Katie forced me to start living again. I cannot wait to meet her. And her grandmother. At noon, Margaret drove to pick up Helen and Katie. They arrived wearing new winter coats, gifts from Thomas that he had insisted they accept. Katie carried Helen's famous pumpkin pie. Helen brought homemade rolls. They entered the house with wide eyes, taking in the Christmas decorations. This is beautiful, Helen said. Like something from a magazine. Thomas introduced Michael. This is my son. Michael, this is Helen and Katie Monroe. Michael shook their hands warmly. Dad has told me so much about you both. Thank you for everything you have done for him. We should be thanking him, Helen said. Your father saved our lives. From what I hear, you saved his life too. They gathered in the dining room for Christmas dinner. The table was laden with turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, vegetables, and all the traditional dishes. Margaret had outdone herself. As they ate, conversation flowed easily. Michael told stories about his law practice. Katie described her work at the community center recycling program. Helen talked about the children she was helping learn to read. One little boy could barely read at all when we started, Helen said. Now he is reading full books. Seeing his confidence grow is the best gift I could ask for. Thomas watched his son interact with Helen and Katie. He saw Michael laugh genuinely for the first time in years. He saw the warmth in Michael's eyes. His family was healing. After dinner, they exchanged gifts in the living room. Thomas gave Katie a laptop for schoolwork. Helen received a tablet so she could access recipes and stay connected. Michael received a watch that had belonged to Thomas's father. I want you to have this, Thomas told Michael. Family is important. We lost sight of that for a while, but these two reminded me. Katie gave Thomas a framed drawing she had made. It showed Thomas, Helen, Katie, and Michael standing together in front of the Bradford house. I know we are not really family, Katie said, but it feels like we are. Thomas felt tears welling up. You are family. Both of you. Family is not just blood. It is the people who show up for each other. Helen gave Thomas a small wooden box. Inside was a hand-carved angel. I made this years ago, when my husband was still alive. I want you to have it. Angels watch over us and guide us. I think maybe Katie was your angel, appearing when you needed her most. Thomas held the angel carefully. I will treasure this always. The afternoon passed in comfortable companionship. They played board games, watched Christmas movies, and ate pie. For the first time since Rachel died, the Bradford house felt alive with laughter and joy. As evening approached, Michael pulled his father aside. Dad, I have been thinking. I could transfer to the Portland office of my firm. Come back home. If you would like that. Thomas gripped his son's shoulder. I would like that very much. I need to be here. I need to be part of this. Watching you with Helen and Katie, seeing you happy again, made me realize how much I have been missing. I want to help with the community center work. I want to reconnect with you. I want to actually live instead of just working. When would you transfer? February, probably. I need to wrap up some cases first. But then I am coming home. Thomas pulled Michael into another hug. His son was coming home. His family was whole again. Later, as Thomas drove Helen and Katie back to their apartment, snow began falling again. Thank you for including us in your Christmas, Helen said from the back seat. It was the best Christmas we have had in years. Thank you for being there, Thomas replied. Both of you. You brought my son back to me. You brought me back to life. I liked Michael, Katie said. He is nice. And funny. He liked you too. I could tell. At the apartment, Thomas walked them to the door. He hugged them both goodbye. I will see you in a few days. Rest and enjoy your gifts. After they went inside, Thomas sat in his car for a moment. He thought about how far he had come in 3 months. From empty and hopeless to filled with purpose and surrounded by people he cared about. He looked at the angel figurine sitting on his dashboard. Helen was right. Katie had been an angel, appearing exactly when he needed saving. The new year arrived with hope. Michael worked on his transfer to Portland. Thomas continued his support of the Riverside Community Center, which was thriving with new programs and renovations. Helen's health remained strong. Katie excelled in school and at her part-time job. In January, Thomas called a meeting at the community center. He, Helen, Katie, Ms. Johnson, and several community leaders gathered in the newly renovated conference room. I have been thinking about expansion, Thomas said. The center serves 200 families now, but there are probably 500 families in this neighborhood who could benefit from programs. We would need more space, Ms. Johnson said, and more staff. Our budget is maxed out even with your generous donations. Thomas pulled out a folder. What if we started a foundation? The Bradford Foundation for Community Development. It would be funded through my company's profits and private donations. The foundation would support this center and eventually help establish similar centers in other underserved neighborhoods. The room fell silent. Then Ms. Johnson spoke, her voice trembling. "Mr. Bradford, are you serious?" "Completely serious. I have talked to my lawyers and accountants. I can commit $2 million initially, with ongoing funding from company profits. But I do not want to run it alone. I want community input." He looked around the table. "I want Helen on the board. Her experience as an educator is invaluable. I want Ms. Johnson as executive director. I want representatives from the neighborhood who understand the real needs." "This could change everything," one of the community leaders said. "Not just for this neighborhood, but for the whole city. That is the goal. Use my resources to make a real difference. Create opportunities. Support families. Build community." Helen reached over and squeezed Thomas's hand. "Rachel would be so proud of you." "I hope so. I am trying to honor her memory by doing what she would have done." Over the next month, the Bradford Foundation took shape. Lawyers filed paperwork. A board of directors was established. Plans were drawn up for expanding the community center and creating satellite programs in other neighborhoods. Michael returned to Portland in February. He moved into an apartment near his father's house and started work at the Portland office of his law firm. He also joined the foundation board, offering legal expertise pro bono. Katie continued her work at Bradford Industries and the community center. Her recycling program had grown, now involving dozens of kids. They collected bottles and cans throughout the neighborhood, teaching younger children about environmental responsibility while raising funds. One Saturday in March, Katie gave a presentation to the foundation board about expanding the recycling program to schools. "If we partner with schools," Katie explained, showing charts she had created, "we could teach environmental science while raising money for school programs. It is a win-win." The board approved her proposal unanimously. Michael volunteered to handle the legal agreements with schools. Helen offered to develop educational curriculum. After the meeting, Thomas walked Katie out to where Margaret was waiting to drive her home. "You did great in there," Thomas said. "Very professional presentation." "I was nervous." "You did not show it. You are going to do amazing things with your life, Katie. I believe that completely." Katie looked up at him. "Mr. Bradford, can I ask you something? When you lost Rachel, how did you keep going?" Thomas was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I did not keep going. Not really. I gave up for a long time. I existed, but I did not live." He knelt down to Katie's eye level. "But then I met you. And you reminded me that life still has meaning. That there is still good in the world. That I could still make a difference. I just returned to all it." "No. You did so much more. You showed integrity when it would have been easier to lie. You showed strength when carrying an impossible burden. You showed me that hope still exists." Katie hugged him tightly. "You are like family to me. You and Michael and Margaret. Like the family I lost but found again." Thomas felt tears in his eyes. "You are family to me too, sweetheart. Always." That evening, Thomas had dinner with Michael at his apartment. As they ate pizza and watched a basketball game, Michael brought up something that had been on his mind. "Dad, I have been thinking about visiting Rachel's grave. I have not been there since the funeral. I think I am ready now." "I will go with you," Thomas said. "Whenever you want." The next Saturday, Thomas, Michael, Helen, and Katie drove to the cemetery. It was a beautiful spring day, flowers blooming and birds singing. They stood together at Rachel's grave. Thomas placed fresh flowers. Michael wiped his eyes and talked to his sister, telling her about the changes in his life. "I know you would like Katie and Helen," Michael said. "They are good people. The best. And they helped Dad find his way back. They helped me find my way back too." Helen placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "Rachel's spirit lives on through the good work you and your father are doing. Love never dies. It just transforms into something new." As they walked back to the car, Katie turned to look at the grave one more time. She whispered a quiet thank you to Rachel, for having a father who was willing to help a stranger, for teaching Thomas about kindness and compassion. In April, the expanded community center held a grand reopening. The building now included a computer lab with new equipment, a full library, a commercial kitchen for cooking classes, and classrooms for tutoring and programs. Over 300 people attended the celebration. Local news covered the story. The mayor gave a speech thanking Thomas for his commitment to the community. When it was Thomas's turn to speak, he kept it brief. I am not the hero of this story. That honor belongs to a 12-year-old girl named Katie Monroe, who showed me that doing the right thing still matters. To Helen Monroe, who taught her granddaughter to value integrity over convenience. And to my daughter Rachel, whose memory inspires everything I do. He gestured to Katie and Helen standing nearby. These two people saved my life. They gave me purpose. They reminded me what love looks like. This center, this foundation, all of it exists because of them. So when you thank someone today, thank them. The crowd applauded. Katie felt her face flush with embarrassment, but Helen pulled her close. Be proud, sweetheart. You started all of this. After the ceremony, Thomas stood with Michael, Helen, and Katie, watching children play in the new gym and families explore the facilities. Rachel would love this, Michael said. She would, Thomas agreed. And I think she would love how our family has grown. He looked at Helen and Katie. Because that is what you are. Family. Not by blood, but by choice. And that makes it even more special. Helen smiled. Family takes many forms. Sometimes the people who save us are not the ones we expect. As the sun set over Portland, casting golden light through the windows of the community center, Thomas felt a sense of completeness he had not experienced in years. The building hummed with life and laughter. Children ran through hallways that had been silent and empty just months ago. Parents chatted in the lobby, grateful for a safe place for their kids. Katie tugged on Thomas's sleeve. Mr. Bradford, some of the kids want to show you the recycling center we built in the back. Can you come see? I would love to. They walked outside where a group of children had organized a sorting station. Bins were labeled for different types of recyclables. A chart tracked weekly collections. Everything was neat and organized. We collected $473 last month, a boy named Marcus told Thomas proudly. Katie taught us how to sort everything properly. This is impressive, Thomas said. Really impressive. What are you going to do with the money? We are saving up for new basketballs and sports equipment, another child explained. Ms. Johnson said we could decide how to spend what we raise. Thomas looked at Katie, who stood off to the side, letting the other children take credit. She could have claimed this as her project, but instead she empowered others to lead, just like Helen had taught her. Later that evening, after the celebration wound down, Thomas gathered with his chosen family at a nearby restaurant. Margaret joined them, as did Ms. Johnson and a few of the community center volunteers. They filled a large table, sharing food and stories. I propose a toast, Michael said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, to second chances, and to the people who remind us what really matters. They clinked glasses. Katie drank her soda, smiling at the adults around her. 6 months ago, she had been alone, desperate, collecting bottles to save her grandmother. Now she sat at a table surrounded by people who cared about her. Can I say something? Katie asked. Of course, Thomas said. Katie stood up, suddenly nervous. I just want to thank everyone. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I was going to lose my grandmother. I thought we would never have enough money for medicine or food or anything. I felt hopeless. Her voice grew stronger. But then I found Mr. Bradford's wallet. And I almost kept it. I really did. I thought about all the problems that money would solve. But my grandmother always taught me that doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing. So I returned it. Katie looked at Thomas. And Mr. Bradford did not just thank me and send me away. He saw us. He really saw us. He saw that we were struggling and he helped. Not just with money, but with kindness and time and caring. He became family. She turned to the others at the table. Because of him, my grandmother is healthy. Because of him, I have a job and a future. Because of him, this whole community has resources and hope. One act of kindness changed everything. Katie raised her glass. So my toast is this: may we all be brave enough to do the right thing even when it is hard. And may we all be kind enough to help when we see someone struggling. Because that is how we change the world. One person at a time. The table erupted in applause. Helen wiped tears from her eyes. Thomas felt his heart swell with pride and love. This remarkable young girl had wisdom beyond her years. As the dinner ended and people began saying their goodbyes, Thomas pulled Katie aside. "That was beautiful, what you said. I meant every word." "I know you did." Thomas paused. "Katie, I want to tell you something. When Rachel died, I thought my life was over. I thought I would never feel joy again. I was wrong. You brought joy back into my life. You gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. You reminded me that love and kindness still exist in this world. You did the same for me and Grandma. That is the beautiful thing about kindness. It multiplies. You were kind by returning my wallet. I was kind by helping you. Now you are teaching other kids about helping their community. They will go on to help others. It just keeps spreading." Katie thought about this. Like ripples in a pond. Exactly like ripples in a pond. One small stone creates waves that spread far and wide. They rejoined the others. Michael offered to drive Helen and Katie home. As they gathered their coats, Thomas remembered something. "Wait, I have something for you both." He pulled 2 envelopes from his jacket. "Open them when you get home." In the car, Katie could barely contain her curiosity. "What do you think is in them?" Knowing Thomas, it could be anything, Helen said with a smile. When they arrived home, they sat on the couch and opened their envelopes together. Inside Katie's was a letter and a certificate. The letter read, "Dear Katie, you have shown remarkable leadership with the recycling program. I am proud to announce that the Bradford Foundation is hiring you as the Youth Environmental Coordinator. This is a real position with real responsibilities. You will develop programs, teach other young people, and help expand recycling efforts across the city. Your salary will be deposited into your education fund. Congratulations on your promotion. Love, Thomas." The certificate was official, with the foundation seal and everything. Katie stared at it in disbelief. She had a real title. She was a coordinator. Helen opened her envelope. Inside was also a letter and a document. The letter said, "Dear Helen, your work with the reading program has been exceptional. The Bradford Foundation would like to hire you as Director of Educational Programs. You would develop curriculum, train volunteers, and oversee all educational initiatives. This is a paid position that will utilize your decades of teaching experience. I hope you will accept. Love, Thomas." The document was an employment contract with a generous salary. Helen and Katie looked at each other, then burst into tears of joy. They hugged each other tightly. "We have real jobs," Katie said. "Important jobs." "Thomas believes in us," Helen replied. "He sees our value and our potential. We are so blessed, Grandma." "We are. We truly are." That night, Katie lay in her comfortable bed in her renovated apartment. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from collecting bottles in the rain to being a youth coordinator for a foundation. From desperate and hopeless to secure and optimistic. She thought about the wallet. That one decision to do the right thing had changed everything. If she had kept the money, her grandmother might have gotten medicine for a few weeks. But by returning it, she had gained so much more. A job, an education fund, a home, and most importantly, a family. Katie understood now what her grandmother had always tried to teach her. Integrity matters. Honesty matters. Doing the right thing might not always lead to immediate rewards, but it leads to something more valuable. Peace of mind, self-respect. And sometimes, if you are very fortunate, it leads to connections with people who change your life. Across town, Thomas sat in his study, looking at the photo of Rachel on his desk. "I did good today, sweetheart," he told the picture. "I think you would be proud. I am finally living again. Really living." He thought about the year ahead. The foundation would expand. More community centers would open. More families would be helped. Michael would be nearby, working alongside him. Helen and Katie would be part of his daily life. Thomas had learned something valuable. Money alone does not bring happiness. But money used with purpose, money given with love, money spent to lift others up, that brings joy beyond measure. He also learned that sometimes the people who save you are not who you expect. He thought he was helping a desperate girl and her sick grandmother. But really, they were helping him. They were pulling him out of darkness and back into light. At the grief support group the following Tuesday, Thomas shared his news about hiring Helen and Katie. 3 months ago, I could barely function, Thomas told the group. Now I have a foundation helping hundreds of people. I have my son back in my life. I have 2 people I love like family. All because I was willing to accept help from an unlikely source. Barbara, the facilitator, smiled. That is the thing about grief. Sometimes the way through it is not to try to go back to who we were before. It is to become someone new. Someone shaped by loss, but not defined by it. Jack, who had started volunteering at the food bank, nodded. Thomas inspired me to start giving back. And you know what? It helps. Helping others helps heal yourself. Others in the group shared similar stories. How they had found purpose through service. How they had discovered that love does not end with death, it just transforms. Thomas left the group feeling grateful. He had found his way through grief not by forgetting Rachel, but by honoring her memory through action. Every child who learned to read at the community center was a tribute to her. Every family that received help was a reflection of her compassionate spirit. As spring turned to summer, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Katie finished 7th grade with excellent grades. The education fund Thomas had established for her continued to grow. Helen's reading program expanded to 3 additional community centers across Portland. Michael became increasingly involved with the foundation's work. He used his legal expertise to help families navigate complicated systems. He also reconnected with old friends and started dating again, something he had avoided since Rachel's death. "You are doing better," Thomas observed one evening as they had dinner together. "I am," Michael agreed. "Being back in Portland, being close to you, being part of the foundation work, it has all helped. And Katie and Helen have been good for me too. They remind me that family can be found in unexpected places. They are pretty special. They really are." Michael paused. "Dad, I have been thinking. What if we established a scholarship program in Rachel's name? For students who show exceptional character and integrity, like Katie. Students who might not have financial resources, but who have good hearts." Thomas felt emotion rise in his throat. Rachel would love that. Let us do it. They established the Rachel Bradford Character Scholarship. It would provide full college tuition for 1 student each year, selected based on integrity, community service, and academic achievement. Katie would be eligible to apply when she reached high school. The first scholarship would be awarded the following spring, on what would have been Rachel's 25th birthday. As summer progressed, Thomas noticed that he thought about Rachel differently now. The pain of losing her was still there, but it no longer consumed him. He could remember happy times without being overwhelmed by sadness. He could look at her pictures and smile. One evening in July, Thomas hosted a barbecue at his house. He invited Helen, Katie, Michael, Margaret, Ms. Johnson, and several volunteers from the community center. The backyard filled with laughter and the smell of grilled food. Katie and some of the younger volunteers played frisbee on the lawn. Michael taught them trick throws. Helen and Ms. Johnson sat on the patio, discussing plans for a fall fundraiser. Margaret circulated with lemonade and snacks. Thomas stood at the grill, flipping burgers and watching his chosen family enjoy themselves. This, he thought, is what life is supposed to be. Connection, joy, purpose, love. Margaret came to stand beside him. "It is good to see this house full of life again, sir. It feels right, does not it?" "It does. You are a different person than you were 6 months ago. Happier, more at peace. I have Katie and Helen to thank for that. And you, Margaret. You have been with me through everything." "I just want to say thank you," Thomas began. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this journey. 6 months ago, I was lost. I was going through the motions, but not really living. Then Katie returned my wallet, and everything changed." He looked around at the faces gathered in his backyard. I learned that family is not just blood. It is the people who show up, the people who care, the people who help you become better than you were. Thomas raised his glass. To family, in all its forms. To second chances. To the power of one small act of kindness to change the world. And to Rachel, whose spirit lives on in everything we do. To Rachel, everyone echoed. As stars began appearing in the darkening sky, Katie sat next to Helen on a bench overlooking the garden. Are you happy, Grandma? I am very happy, sweetheart. Happier than I have been in years. Are you? Yes. I keep thinking about that day I found the wallet. What if I had not been searching behind that grocery store? What if I had kept the money? Everything would be different. But you did not keep it. You chose honesty. And that choice brought blessings to all of us. Katie leaned against her grandmother. Do you think Mom and Dad know about everything that has happened? I believe they do. And I believe they are very proud of you. I hope so. I try to make them proud every day. You succeed every day, Helen said firmly. You are kind, honest, hardworking, and compassionate. You are everything they hoped you would be. They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies begin to glow in the garden. The sounds of laughter and conversation drifted over from the patio. The air smelled of summer flowers and barbecue smoke. Katie thought about how much her life had changed. From poverty and desperation to security and opportunity. From loneliness to being surrounded by people who cared. From hopelessness to having dreams and plans for the future. And it all started with one decision. One choice to do the right thing even when the wrong thing would have been so much easier. Katie made a silent promise to herself. She would always choose kindness. She would always choose integrity. She would always help others the way Thomas had helped her. Because that is how you change the world. One good choice at a time. As the party wound down and guests began leaving, Thomas walked Helen and Katie to Margaret's car. Thank you for coming, Thomas said, hugging them both. You make every day better. Thank you for including us, Helen replied. You have given us so much. You have given me more. You gave me back my life. On the drive home, Katie looked out the window at the city lights. Portland looked different to her now. Not threatening, but full of possibility. Not a place of struggle, but a place of opportunity. Grandma. Katie said. Yes, dear. I am glad I found that wallet. Helen smiled in the darkness. So am I, sweetheart. So am I. August arrived with warm sunshine and clear skies. The Bradford Foundation had been operating for 6 months and was making a real impact across Portland. 3 community centers now offered programs. Over 400 families were receiving support. Katie's recycling program had expanded to 12 elementary schools. She trained student leaders at each school, teaching them how to organize collection efforts and manage the funds raised. Her work had diverted thousands of pounds of recyclables from landfills while raising money for school programs. One Tuesday morning, Katie arrived at the foundation office for her summer work hours. She found Thomas in a meeting with a woman she had never seen before. The woman looked to be in her 30s, thin and tired, with worry lines around her eyes. Thomas waved Katie over. Katie, I would like you to meet Jennifer Hayes. Jennifer, this is Katie Monroe, our Youth Environmental Coordinator. Jennifer shook Katie's hand weakly. Nice to meet you. Jennifer came to us through our Family Services program, Thomas explained. She is a single mother of 2, recently lost her job, and is facing eviction. I thought you might have some perspective to share. Katie understood immediately. Thomas wanted her to talk to Jennifer about their own experience with poverty and struggle. She sat down across from Jennifer. I know what it feels like to be scared, Katie said gently. 6 months ago, my grandmother was sick, and we had no money for medicine. I was collecting bottles and cans, trying to save enough. I felt hopeless, like nothing would ever get better. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. That is exactly how I feel. Like I am drowning and nobody cares. But people do care. Mr. Bradford cares. The foundation cares. And I promise you, it can get better. Let us figure out how to help you. Over the next hour, Katie listened as Jennifer explained her situation. She had been working as a cashier, but the store closed. Her savings ran out quickly. Rent was due in a week, and she had nothing. Thomas took notes, asking questions about Jennifer's skills and work history. Then he made some phone calls. By the end of the morning, he had arranged several job interviews for Jennifer and secured emergency funding to cover her rent for 3 months. "This will give you time to get back on your feet," Thomas said. "No strings attached. Just focus on finding stable work and taking care of your children." Jennifer cried with relief. "How can I ever repay you?" "By paying it forward," Katie said. "When you are stable again, help someone else who is struggling. That is how kindness works. It keeps spreading." After Jennifer left, Thomas turned to Katie. "You did well with her. You understood what she was feeling." "Because I have been there. Not as bad as her, but I understand that fear. That is why your voice is so important. You can reach people in ways I cannot. You have credibility because you lived it." Katie thought about that as she went about her work that day. She had gone from being the person who needed help to being the person who could help others. The transformation felt significant. That evening, Katie attended a youth leadership meeting at the main community center. 20 teenagers from across the city had gathered to plan a fall fundraising event. Katie, as one of the youngest in the group, felt nervous about contributing. But as the meeting progressed, she found herself speaking up. She had ideas about how to engage younger kids in fundraising. She understood how to motivate volunteers because she had been there herself. A 17-year-old named Derek, who was leading the meeting, looked impressed. "Those are good ideas, Katie. You should take the lead on the youth recruitment piece." "Me? But I am only 12. "So, age does not matter. What matters is that you know what you are talking about and you care about the work." Katie accepted the responsibility. By the end of the meeting, she had assembled a committee of younger volunteers and scheduled their first planning session. Walking home with Helen that evening, Katie felt proud. "They want me to lead a committee, Grandma. They think I am ready." "You are ready. You have been ready. You just needed to believe in yourself." "Mr. Bradford believes in me. That helps. Mr. Bradford sees what I have always seen. A capable, intelligent, compassionate young woman with unlimited potential." At home, Katie worked on her committee plans. She wanted to do a good job, to prove that Derek had been right to trust her. As she worked, her phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Proud of you for taking on leadership. You are going to do great things. P.S. Michael wants to know if you and Helen are free for brunch on Sunday." Katie smiled and texted back confirmation. Sunday brunches with Thomas and Michael had become a regular event. Sometimes Margaret joined them. Sometimes Ms. Johnson. It was a fluid, chosen family that grew and shifted, but always remained connected. The next few weeks were busy. Katie organized her youth committee. Helen finalized plans for the fall literacy campaign. Thomas worked on expanding the foundation to other cities. Michael handled legal matters and started developing policy recommendations for city government around poverty reduction. In early September, the foundation hosted a town hall meeting to gather community input. Over 200 people attended, filling the main community center auditorium. Thomas opened the meeting. "We want to hear from you. What does this community need? What are we missing? How can we serve you better?" People lined up at the microphone to share thoughts. Some praised the existing programs. Others suggested new ideas. A few expressed concerns about gentrification and displacement. One woman stood up and said, "My sister was helped by this foundation last month. She was about to lose her apartment. You covered her rent and helped her find a job. Now she is stable again. I just want to say thank you. You are changing lives." Another man shared, "My son participates in the recycling program that Katie runs. He has learned so much about environmental responsibility. But more than that, he has learned that kids can make a difference. He has confidence now. He believes in himself." Katie felt her face grow warm as people applauded. She had not realized how much impact her work was having. An elderly man approached the microphone slowly. "I want to thank Thomas Bradford personally. My granddaughter goes to the after-school program here. She gets a hot meal, help with homework, and a safe place to go. As a single grandfather raising her alone, this center has been a lifeline. Thomas stood and walked to the man, shaking his hand. Thank you for sharing that. Stories like yours remind us why this work matters. At the end of the meeting, Thomas made an announcement. Based on tonight's feedback, the Bradford Foundation is committing to open 3 more community centers in the next year. We are also launching a job training program and expanding our emergency assistance fund. The audience erupted in applause. Helen squeezed Katie's hand. This was what real change looked like. Not just charity, but systemic support that empowered people to build better lives. After the meeting, a young woman approached Katie. She was maybe 19 or 20, wearing a fast food uniform. Hi, I am Melissa. I just wanted to tell you that you inspire me. I dropped out of high school 2 years ago. But watching you, seeing how young you are and how much you are accomplishing, made me realize I could go back. I enrolled in a GED program last week. Katie felt tears spring to her eyes. That is amazing. Good for you. You showed me that age does not matter. What matters is determination and heart. So thank you. After Melissa walked away, Katie turned to Helen. Did you hear that, Grandma? I inspired someone. You inspire lots of people, sweetheart. You just do not always see it. That night, Katie lay in bed thinking about responsibility. She had influence now. People listened to her. Young people looked up to her. That meant she had to continue making good choices, continue working hard, continue being the person others believed she was. It felt like pressure sometimes, but it also felt purposeful. Katie thought about the wallet again. That one choice to do the right thing had led to all of this. What if she had chosen differently? Where would she be now? The next morning, Katie went to Bradford Industries for her regular work shift. She was filing papers when Mrs. Chen called her into her office. Katie, I have been watching you work for months now. You are reliable, careful, and smart. How would you feel about taking on more responsibility? Some data entry work, maybe some basic bookkeeping. I would like that. But I am not sure I know how to do bookkeeping. I will teach you. You are a quick learner, and it will be useful skills for your future. Katie spent the next week training with Mrs. Chen. She learned how to use spreadsheet software, how to track expenses, how to reconcile accounts. The work was detailed and required focus, but Katie found she enjoyed it. You have a mind for numbers, Mrs. Chen observed. Have you thought about studying business or accounting in college? I was thinking about being a doctor or teacher. You could do those things. But do not limit yourself. You have talents in many areas. Keep your options open. Katie thought about that conversation all week. She had always assumed she would follow in her grandmother's footsteps as a teacher. But maybe she could do something else. Maybe she could be a business person who helped communities. Or an accountant who worked for non-profit organizations. The possibilities felt endless. On Saturday, Katie attended a training session for her youth committee. She taught the group about organizing volunteers, managing projects, and communicating effectively. The kids were enthusiastic and full of ideas. After the training, Derek pulled Katie aside. You are a natural leader. Have you thought about running for student council when you get to high school? Not really. I am not sure I am the student council type. Why not? You are smart, organized, and people trust you. That is exactly what student council needs. Katie filed that idea away. Maybe she could run for student council someday. Maybe she could use that position to create positive changes in her school. That evening, Thomas, Michael, Helen, and Katie had dinner together at the Bradford house. Margaret had made a roast chicken with vegetables. They ate in the dining room, talking and laughing like the family they had become. I have news, Michael announced. The city council asked me to serve on a task force for affordable housing policy. They want foundation representation. That is wonderful, Helen said. You will do an excellent job. I hope so. The housing crisis in Portland is real. Too many families are one paycheck away from homelessness. Like we were, Katie said quietly. Exactly like you were, Michael agreed. Which is why your story matters. Why your voice matters. You understand these issues from lived experience. Thomas raised his glass. to Michael's new position, to making a real difference in policy, to remembering where we came from and helping others rise up. They clinked glasses. Katie noticed how comfortable this had become. These dinners, these conversations, this family. It felt natural and right. After dinner, they looked at photos from the town hall meeting. Margaret had taken pictures throughout the event. One photo showed Katie speaking with Melissa. Another captured Thomas shaking hands with the elderly grandfather. Another showed the full auditorium, packed with community members. "Frame that one," Thomas said, pointing to the auditorium photo. "I want to remember this night. The night we heard directly from the people we serve about what matters most to them." As the evening ended and Margaret prepared to drive Helen and Katie home, Thomas pulled Katie aside. "I want to tell you something. Watching you grow into leadership these past months has been one of the greatest joys of my life. You remind me of Rachel in some ways. That same determination, that same compassion, that same refusal to accept injustice. Thank you, Mr. Bradford. That means a lot." "I mean it, Katie. You are going to change the world. I believe that completely, and I am honored to be part of your journey." Katie hugged him tightly. "I would not have any of this without you. You gave me a chance. You believed in me. You earned everything you have. All I did was provide opportunity. You did the hard work." On the drive home, Katie gazed out the window at the city lights. She thought about Jennifer Hayes, who was now working a new job and catching up on rent. She thought about Melissa, who was pursuing her GED. She thought about all the families using the community centers, all the children in her recycling program, all the people who had been helped by the foundation. One act of kindness had created ripples that spread far and wide. Katie had returned a wallet. Thomas had helped a family. They had created a foundation that helped hundreds more. Those people would go on to help others. The ripples continued spreading outward. "Grandma," Katie said. "Yes, dear. Do you think kindness can really change the world?" Helen was quiet for a moment. "I think kindness is the only thing that can change the world. Laws and policies matter, but they come from people. And people are moved by kindness, by compassion, by seeing that someone cares. So yes, I think kindness changes everything." Katie settled back in her seat, satisfied with that answer. She would continue choosing kindness. She would continue paying forward the help she had received. She would continue spreading ripples of compassion wherever she went. Because that was what mattered. Not wealth or power or status, but how you treated people. Whether you chose to help or to look away. Whether you did the right thing even when it was hard. Katie had learned that lesson well, and she would carry it with her for the rest of her life. Late September brought crisp mornings and colorful leaves falling from trees. The Bradford Foundation continued its work, but something unexpected was developing. Jennifer Walsh, a reporter for the Portland Tribune, had been hearing stories about the foundation. She heard about families rescued from eviction. She heard about community centers transforming neighborhoods. Most interesting, she heard about a 12-year-old girl who had started it all by returning a lost wallet. Jennifer reached out to Thomas's office requesting an interview. Thomas was hesitant. He did not want publicity. He just wanted to do good work. But Helen convinced him otherwise. "Stories inspire people," she told Thomas over coffee. "If people hear what happened with Katie, what you have built, it might inspire them to be more generous, more kind. Do not hide this light under a bushel." Thomas discussed it with Michael, who agreed. "Dad, this could help with fundraising. If people understand the foundation's work, they might want to contribute. We could expand even faster." So Thomas agreed to the interview. Jennifer Walsh visited the foundation office on a Tuesday morning in late September. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a kind smile. "Thank you for meeting with me," Jennifer said, setting up her recording equipment. "I have to say, the stories I have been hearing are remarkable." "We are just trying to help people," Thomas said modestly. "Let me start at the beginning. I understand this all started when a young girl returned your lost wallet. Can you tell me about that?" Thomas told the story. Finding his wallet missing. Katie showing up at his door. The $3,000 untouched. Helen's illness. His decision to help. Jennifer listened intently, occasionally asking questions. And how did this lead to a foundation helping hundreds of families? Katie reminded me what goodness looks like, Thomas explained. She reminded me that integrity still matters. After my daughter died, I had lost my way. But Katie showed me that I could honor Rachel's memory by helping others. Can I speak with Katie? I would have to ask her grandmother. Katie is only 12. But I think she would be willing to talk to you. Jennifer interviewed Helen next, then Katie. She visited the community centers, spoke with families who had been helped, interviewed volunteers and staff. She spent a week gathering material. During her interview with Katie, Jennifer asked pointed questions. Katie, you could have kept that money. Your grandmother was sick. You were desperate. Why did you return it? Katie thought about her answer carefully. My grandmother taught me that who you are matters more than what you have. I knew keeping the money would solve problems short term. But it would also change who I was. I would have become someone who steals when things get hard. That is not who I want to be. But you were 12 years old, carrying an enormous burden. Most adults would have been tempted. I was tempted, Katie admitted. Really tempted. But I knew my grandmother would be disappointed if I kept it. And I would have been disappointed in myself. Some things matter more than money. Jennifer's article appeared on the front page of the Portland Tribune the following Sunday. The headline read, "Girl returns $3,000 to stranger, sparks movement of kindness." The article told the full story. Katie's struggles, the wallet, Thomas's help, the foundation's creation, the lives changed. It included interviews with families helped by the foundation, quotes from Katie and Helen and Thomas, and photos of the community centers. The response was immediate and overwhelming. By Monday morning, the foundation's phone was ringing constantly. News stations wanted interviews. Other newspapers wanted to run the story. People wanted to make donations. Schools wanted to invite Katie to speak. Thomas's office was flooded with messages. Thomas, Michael, Helen, and Katie gathered for an emergency meeting to figure out how to handle the attention. "This is bigger than we expected," Michael said, scrolling through emails on his laptop. "We have interview requests from national news programs. Good Morning America wants to fly you to New York." "That seems excessive," Thomas said. "We are just doing good work. We are not celebrities." "But people are inspired," Helen pointed out. "Look at this." She held up her phone showing social media posts. Thousands of people were sharing the article, commenting about how Katie's story moved them. Katie read some of the comments aloud. "This restored my faith in humanity. We need more people like Katie in the world. I am donating to the Bradford Foundation today." "People want to be part of this," Michael said. "They want to believe that kindness still matters. Katie, you have become a symbol of integrity." Katie felt uncomfortable with the attention. "I just did what my grandmother taught me. I do not want to be famous." "You do not have to do any interviews you do not want to do," Thomas assured her. "We will handle this carefully." "But Helen is right. Your story inspires people. Maybe we should share it." Over the next week, they carefully selected interview opportunities. Thomas and Katie appeared on a local morning show. The segment was heartfelt and genuine, showing their real relationship. The interview went viral online. A national news magazine wanted to feature the story. Their reporter came to Portland and spent 3 days following Katie, Helen, and Thomas. She visited the community centers, attended a foundation board meeting, and watched Katie lead her youth committee. The resulting article was published in mid-October with the headline, "The $3,000 Choice, How One Girl's Integrity Changed a Community." The article was in-depth and moving. It explored poverty in America, the importance of community support, and the power of individual choice. It positioned Katie as a role model for young people everywhere. After the magazine article, the foundation received over $1 million in donations. Thomas was stunned. He called an emergency board meeting. "We have an opportunity here," Thomas said. "We can scale up faster than we planned. We can help more people. But we need to be strategic." Helen proposed expanding literacy programs to more schools. Ms. Johnson wanted to add mental health services at the community centers. Michael suggested creating a legal aid clinic. Katie asked if they could start environmental education programs beyond just recycling. They developed a comprehensive expansion plan. The $1 million would be invested carefully in programs with measurable impact. They would hire more staff, open new centers, and develop innovative programs. But with the growth came challenges. The foundation needed better systems, more oversight, and professional management. Thomas hired an experienced nonprofit director to handle day-to-day operations. Michael developed stronger governance policies. Helen worked on program evaluation to ensure quality. Through it all, Katie tried to maintain her normal life. She went to school, did homework, attended her youth committee meetings. But she was recognized now. People approached her in public. Teachers treated her differently. Other students looked at her with a mix of admiration and envy. One day at school, a girl named Brittany confronted Katie in the hallway. Brittany had always been one of the popular kids, someone who had never paid attention to Katie before. "You think you are so special now," Brittany said, "just because you were on TV." Katie tried to walk around her, but Brittany blocked her path. "I am not trying to be special. I am just being myself. You are showing off, acting like you are better than everyone else." Katie felt her face flush with frustration. "I am not showing off. I did not ask for any of this attention. I just returned a wallet because it was the right thing to do." "Sure. You just happened to find a rich guy's wallet. How convenient." A teacher, Mrs. Patterson, appeared in the hallway. "Is there a problem here, girls?" "No problem," Brittany said with a fake smile, walking away. Mrs. Patterson looked at Katie with concern. "Are you okay?" "I am fine. Just some people do not understand." That evening, Katie told Helen about the encounter. She felt discouraged. "I thought doing good things was supposed to make people happy. But some people are mad at me." Helen pulled Katie close. "Not everyone will understand or appreciate what you have done. Some people feel threatened by others' success. Some people are cynical. That is not your problem to fix." "But it makes me feel bad." "I know it does. But here is what you need to remember. You did the right thing. You helped people. You made a positive difference. The opinions of one jealous girl do not change that truth." Katie nodded, but she still felt troubled. Fame was not what she wanted. She just wanted to help people and live her life. Thomas noticed Katie seemed quieter at their next family dinner. When he asked what was wrong, Katie explained about Brittany and the attention at school. "I understand how you feel," Thomas said. "When the article first came out, some of my business competitors made snide comments. They said I was only doing this for publicity. They questioned my motives. That must have hurt." "It did. But then I realized something. Their opinions do not matter. What matters is the work we are doing and the people we are helping. You cannot control what others think. You can only control your own actions and choices." Michael added, "Katie, you are going to face criticism throughout your life, especially if you continue to do important work. People who do nothing are never criticized. But people who make a difference always face pushback from someone. It is a sign you are doing something that matters." Katie thought about their words. They made sense. She could not please everyone. She should not try. She just needed to stay focused on her values and her work. The next day at school, Katie held her head high. When Brittany made another comment, Katie simply smiled and walked away. She would not let negativity derail her. More interview requests kept coming. A documentary filmmaker wanted to make a short film about the foundation. A publishing company reached out about Katie writing a book for young readers about integrity and kindness. Thomas, Helen, Michael, and Katie met regularly to discuss which opportunities to accept. They agreed that any media attention should serve the mission of the foundation, not just promote individuals. They accepted the documentary project because it would showcase the community members being helped. They declined the book deal because Katie felt too young to write a book and did not want to be positioned as an expert on anything. "I am just a kid who made one good choice," Katie told the publisher. "I do not have wisdom to share in a whole book. Maybe someday, but not now." The documentary crew spent a month in Portland filming. They captured the community centers in action, interviewed families, and followed Katie through her daily life. The director, a woman named Rachel Chen, was sensitive and thoughtful in her approach. "I want to tell a story about community," Rachel explained. "About how one small action can create waves of change. But I also want to show the real work being done. The systems being built. The lives being transformed." The documentary would premiere at a film festival in December. Thomas agreed to attend with Helen, Katie, and Michael. In November, as the city prepared for Thanksgiving, the foundation held a community celebration. Over 500 people attended, filling the main community center to capacity. Families who had been helped by the foundation shared their stories. A single father talked about how job training helped him find stable employment. A grandmother described how the literacy program taught her to read at age 6 to 7. A teenager explained how the youth programs gave him purpose and direction. Katie sat in the audience listening to these stories. Each one reminded her why the work mattered. This was not about attention or fame. It was about real people getting real help that changed their lives. When it was Katie's time to speak, she approached the microphone nervously. She had prepared some remarks, but suddenly they felt inadequate. "I am not good at speeches," Katie began. "But I want to say thank you. Thank you to Mr. Bradford for seeing me, really seeing me, when I returned his wallet. Thank you to my grandmother for teaching me that integrity matters more than convenience. Thank you to Michael, Margaret, Ms. Johnson, and all the volunteers and staff who do the actual hard work of running these programs." She paused, looking around at the crowd. 6 months ago, I was collecting bottles and cans, trying to save my sick grandmother. I felt invisible. I felt like nobody cared. But then I found a wallet and had to make a choice. Keep the money or do the right thing. Katie's voice grew stronger. I chose to do the right thing. Not because I am special or better than anyone, but because my grandmother raised me to value integrity. That one choice led to all of this. Mr. Bradford helping us. The foundation being created. Hundreds of families getting support. She looked directly at Thomas. "But here is what I have learned. It was not just my choice that mattered. It was Mr. Bradford's choice to help instead of just saying thank you. It was the choice of every volunteer who gives their time. It is the choice of everyone who donates money or resources. Change happens when we all choose kindness, choose generosity, choose to see each other as family." The crowd applauded. Katie saw tears on many faces. She had spoken from her heart, and people felt it. After the celebration, a woman approached Katie. She was middle-aged with graying hair and worn clothes. "I am Susan. I just want to thank you. 2 months ago, I was about to lose my apartment. The foundation helped with rent and connected me with a job. I start next week. You saved my life." Katie hugged her. "I am so glad we could help. But please, when you are stable again, help someone else. That is how we keep this going." "I will. I promise I will." As the evening ended and people filtered out into the cool November night, Thomas gathered with his chosen family. "This was a good day," he said simply. "It was a very good day," Helen agreed. "Rachel would be proud." Michael put his arm around his father. "She would be proud of all of us." Katie looked up at the people she had come to love. Thomas, who had saved her family and become like a grandfather. Michael, who treated her like a little sister. Helen, her constant source of wisdom and love. Margaret, who always had a kind word and a snack ready. "I am grateful," Katie said, "for all of you, for this family we have built, for the work we get to do together." "We are grateful for you," Thomas replied. "You started all of this, Katie. Never forget that." The next week, a major television network aired a feature about the foundation during their evening news. The segment was brief but powerful, showing the community centers, interviewing families, and highlighting Katie's story. After the segment aired, the foundation's website crashed from too much traffic. Donations flooded in. Volunteers signed up from across the country wanting to start similar programs in their communities. Thomas realized they needed to think bigger. The Bradford Foundation could become a model. They could create a blueprint for other communities. They could spread this approach to cities across America. What if we franchise the model? Michael suggested at a board meeting. Not for profit, but for impact. We create a detailed guide on how to set up community support systems. We offer training and consultation. We help other cities replicate what we have done. The board loved the idea. They formed a committee to develop the blueprint. Helen led the educational components. Ms. Johnson documented the operational systems. Michael handled the legal framework. Katie worked on youth engagement strategies. By the time Thanksgiving arrived, the Bradford Foundation had become a national story. But for Thomas, Helen, Katie, Michael, and Margaret, Thanksgiving was not about the attention. It was about gratitude. They gathered at Thomas's house for the second year in a row. This time, they invited Jennifer Hayes and her children, Susan, who had been helped by the foundation, and several other families they had grown close to. 23 people filled the dining room and spilled into the living room. Margaret and Helen had cooked for days. The table overflowed with turkey, stuffing, casseroles, pies, and every traditional dish. Before they ate, Thomas asked everyone to share what they were grateful for. One by one, people spoke. They were grateful for second chances, grateful for community, grateful for kindness, grateful for hope. When it was Katie's turn, she spoke quietly. I am grateful that I found that wallet. I am grateful I chose to return it. I am grateful for Mr. Bradford and Michael and Margaret. I am grateful for my grandmother, who taught me how to be a good person. And I am grateful for everyone here, because you all remind me that goodness still exists in the world. There was not a dry eye at the table. Thomas raised his glass. To Katie, who started this journey. To Helen, who raised her right. To family, in all its beautiful forms. And to Rachel, who watches over us all. To family, everyone echoed. As they ate and talked and laughed, Katie looked around the crowded room. A year ago, it had been just her and Helen, struggling to survive, eating meager meals. Now they sat surrounded by people who loved them, with more than enough food, in a warm and beautiful home. One choice had led to all of this. One moment of integrity had changed everything. Katie understood now that the wallet was not the point. The point was choosing to be the kind of person who returns the wallet. Choosing to be honest even when dishonesty would be easier. Choosing to maintain your values even when circumstances tempt you to abandon them. That was the lesson. That was the gift. Not the money or the attention or the success, but the knowledge that who you are matters more than what you have. And Katie would carry that lesson with her forever. December arrived with cold winds and anticipation. The foundation continued its work, now with national attention. Katie's story had inspired similar initiatives in 12 other cities. Community leaders from across the country reached out asking for guidance. The documentary about the foundation was set to premiere at the Portland Film Festival on December 15th. Thomas, Michael, Helen, and Katie prepared for the event, which would bring even more attention to their work. But something unexpected was developing. The national publicity had reached far beyond Portland, including to places Thomas had never considered. On a Tuesday morning in early December, Thomas received a phone call at his office. The voice on the other end was hesitant, emotional. Mr. Bradford? My name is David Parker. I am calling from Boston. I saw the news story about your foundation, and I need to tell you something important. Thomas switched on his recording app, a habit he had developed for important calls. Yes, Mr. Parker. How can I help you? It is about your son, Michael. I am his partner. Or I was his partner. We broke up 8 months ago. Thomas felt his heart skip. Michael had mentioned a broken engagement, but never discussed details. He always said it was too painful to talk about. I see. Why are you calling me? Because I made a terrible mistake. When Michael's sister died, he pulled away from me emotionally. He threw himself into work. He would not talk about his feelings. I felt shut out. David's voice cracked. So I ended things. I told him I could not be with someone who would not let me in. Thomas listened silently, letting David continue. But after I saw the news stories about what Michael is doing now with the foundation, how he has opened up and reconnected with you, I realized something. He was not shutting me out. He was drowning in grief and did not know how to ask for help. And instead of being patient, I abandoned him when he needed me most. What do you want from me, Mr. Parker? I want to make things right. I love Michael. I never stopped loving him. I know I do not deserve another chance, but I want to try. I wanted to ask you first, though, to see if you thought Michael would even want to hear from me." Thomas considered carefully. Michael had seemed happier lately, more settled. But Thomas had also noticed moments of sadness, times when Michael seemed to be missing something. "I cannot make this decision for my son," Thomas said finally. "But I will tell you this. Michael is happy now. He has found purpose and meaning. If you reach out to him, you need to be sure. You need to be ready to support him through hard days, not just good ones. He deserves someone who will stick around." "I understand. And you are right. I should have stuck around before. But I want the chance to do better." "Then call him." "But David, if he gives you another chance and you hurt him again, you will answer to me." "I understand, sir. Thank you." After the call ended, Thomas sat in thought. Should he warn Michael that David might reach out? Or let Michael handle it himself? He decided to stay out of it unless Michael asked for advice. That evening, Michael called his father, his voice shaking. "Dad, David called me today." "What did he say?" "That he made a mistake. That he wants another chance. That he still loves me." Michael paused. "I do not know what to do." "Do you still love him?" "I do not know. I was so hurt when he left. I felt like I was drowning and he just walked away." "But now you are not drowning anymore," Thomas observed. "Now you are strong again. So the question is, can you forgive him? And do you want to try again?" "Part of me does. But part of me is scared to get hurt again." "That is understandable. Listen, son. Here is what I have learned this year. People make mistakes. They hurt each other. But sometimes they deserve second chances. Katie gave me a second chance at life by returning that wallet. I gave Helen and Katie second chances by helping them. We all deserve grace when we fail. So you think I should forgive him?" "I think you should talk to him. Really talk. See if he has changed. See if he understands what you needed from him. Then decide." Michael was quiet for a long moment. "Will you be disappointed if I take him back?" "I will never be disappointed in you for choosing love, Michael. Never. I will be disappointed if you settle for less than you deserve. But if David has grown, if he is ready to be the partner you need, then I will support you completely." "Thanks, Dad. I needed to hear that." After they hung up, Thomas called Helen. He told her about the situation with Michael and David. "What do you think?" Thomas asked. "I think people can change," Helen said. "David made a mistake, but he is trying to fix it. That counts for something. The question is whether Michael can trust him again. Michael has grown so much this year. He has healed. I do not want to see him get hurt. None of us want to see people we love get hurt. But we also cannot protect them from everything. Michael is an adult. He needs to make his own choices, even if those choices involve risk." Thomas knew she was right. He would support Michael no matter what he decided. Over the next week, Michael and David talked on the phone several times. They had long, honest conversations about what went wrong and what they both needed going forward. Finally, Michael decided to invite David to Portland for the documentary premiere. David accepted immediately. On the night of December 15th, Thomas, Michael, Helen, Katie, and Margaret arrived at the historic theater where the premiere was being held. The lobby buzzed with excitement. Local media had set up cameras. Community members filled the seats. David was waiting in the lobby, looking nervous. He was tall with dark hair and kind eyes. When Michael saw him, something passed between them. Recognition, longing, hope. Thomas watched as his son and David embraced. He saw the emotion on both their faces. Whatever happened between them, he would support it. David greeted Thomas, extending his hand. "Mr. Bradford, thank you for not telling me to stay away from Michael." "Call me Thomas. And you are welcome. Just remember what I said. He deserves the best." "I know he does. I plan to be better this time." Thomas introduced David to Helen and Katie. Helen was warm and welcoming. Katie, perceptive as always, studied David carefully before deciding he was acceptable. "You better be nice to Michael," Katie told David bluntly. "He is part of our family now." David smiled. "I will be. I promise." The lights dimmed and the documentary began. The theater fell silent as the story unfolded on screen. The film opened with Katie collecting bottles in the rain, a dramatization of her life before finding the wallet. The images were stark and moving. Then it showed the moment of decision, Katie holding the wallet, looking at the money. The documentary then followed the real story. Katie returning the wallet, Thomas helping her family, the foundation being created, communities being transformed. But what made the film special was how it featured the people being helped. Susan, who had been saved from eviction. The elderly grandfather whose granddaughter attended the after-school program. The teenager who found purpose through volunteering. Their stories gave depth and meaning to the larger narrative. The documentary showed Katie leading her youth committee, teaching younger kids about recycling. It showed Helen working with children who struggled with reading. It showed Thomas at a board meeting, discussing expansion plans. It showed Michael providing legal advice to families in crisis. The film captured the day-to-day work of the foundation, not just the big moments. It showed the complexity of helping people, the challenges of running programs, the dedication required to make a real difference. Near the end, the documentary returned to Katie. She sat in the same spot where she used to collect bottles, but now she looked confident and hopeful. "I think about that wallet a lot," Katie said to the camera. "What if I had kept the money? My grandmother might have gotten medicine for a little while, but eventually it would have run out, and I would have become someone who steals when life gets hard." She paused, looking directly into the lens. "But by returning it, I became someone who keeps her integrity even when it costs her. And that choice led to all of this. Not just the foundation, but the person I have become, the relationships I have built, the life my grandmother and I have now." Katie smiled. "So I am glad I found that wallet. I am glad I had to make that choice, because it taught me who I want to be." The film ended with images of the community centers full of life, children playing, families laughing, volunteers working. The final words on screen read, "The Bradford Foundation has served 847 families. The model is being replicated in 12 cities. It all started with one choice. What choice will you make?" The theater erupted in applause. People stood, clapping and wiping tears. Thomas looked at Katie, who sat between him and Helen. She looked overwhelmed but proud. After the premiere, there was a reception in the theater lobby. People crowded around Thomas, Katie, and Helen, offering congratulations and asking questions. Reporters wanted statements. Community leaders wanted to discuss partnerships. Through it all, Thomas watched Michael and David standing together in a corner, talking quietly. They held hands. They looked at each other with affection and hope. Thomas felt his heart swell. His son had found love again. His son was allowing himself to be vulnerable again. Later, after most people had left, the family gathered together. Thomas, Michael, and David, Helen, Katie, and Margaret stood in a circle. "This was a good night," Thomas said. "A very good night. The documentary will help spread our message. More communities will be inspired to help their neighbors." "It was beautiful," Helen agreed. "I cried 3 times. Katie laughed. "I cried 5 times, Grandma." Michael squeezed David's hand. "Dad, I want you to know that David and I are going to try again. We are going to take it slow, but we are going to try." Thomas hugged them both. "I am happy for you. Both of you. Love is worth fighting for." As they prepared to leave the theater, a young man approached Katie. He looked to be about 16, with nervous energy. "Katie, I am sorry to bother you. I am Marcus. I am from Seattle. I watched the documentary, and I wanted to tell you something." "Okay," Katie said gently. 2 months ago, I found a wallet with like $500 in it. I kept it. I spent the money on stupid stuff. Video games and junk food." Marcus looked down. "But after seeing your story, I feel terrible. I should have returned it. I should have done the right thing." Katie put her hand on his arm. "You cannot change what you did, but you can choose differently next time. That is what matters. Learning and growing. Do you think it is too late to make it right? It is never too late to do the right thing. Do you still know whose wallet it was?" "I think so. There were business cards inside. I threw them away, but maybe I can find the person. Then try. Find them and explain what happened. Offer to pay them back, even if it takes you a long time. Turn this into a lesson instead of a regret. Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. Thank you. You are right. I am going to find them and make this right. After Marcus left, Helen smiled at Katie. You handled that well. With compassion but also truth. I almost kept the wallet too, Grandma. I understand the temptation. The difference is I had you teaching me what matters. Maybe Marcus did not have that. As they walked to the car, snow began falling softly. Portland looked beautiful under the streetlights, each snowflake catching and reflecting the glow. Katie thought about all the lives that had been touched by one simple choice. Her life. Helen's life. Thomas's life. Michael's life. The hundreds of families helped by the foundation. The 12 cities replicating the model. Marcus, who might now make things right. One choice created ripples that spread farther than she could have imagined. In the car on the way home, Katie leaned against Helen. Grandma, do you think we have done enough? Do you think we have paid back Mr. Bradford for everything he did for us? Helen stroked Katie's hair. Sweetheart, that is not how kindness works. It is not transactional. You do not do good deeds to pay back other good deeds. You do good deeds because that is who you are. But I feel like we owe him so much. And he feels like he owes you for saving his life. See, it is a circle. We help each other. We lift each other up. Nobody is keeping score. Katie thought about that. It made sense. They were family now, chosen family, and family helps each other without expecting repayment. At home, Katie got ready for bed. She looked at the certificate on her wall naming her Youth Environmental Coordinator. She looked at the photos from various foundation events. She looked at a framed picture of her, Helen, Thomas, Michael, and Margaret all together. Her life had transformed completely. From poverty and fear to security and purpose. From isolation to community. From hopelessness to unlimited possibility. And it all started with one choice on a rainy evening behind a grocery store. Katie climbed into bed and closed her eyes. Tomorrow she had school. Tomorrow she had her youth committee meeting. Tomorrow she had work at Bradford Industries. Her life was busy and full and meaningful. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, grateful for every moment, every challenge, every blessing. Because Katie understood now what really mattered. Not wealth or fame or success, but integrity, kindness, love, family, purpose. Those were the things that changed lives. Those were the things that lasted. And those were the things Katie would carry with her always. 6 months passed quickly. Spring arrived in Portland with cherry blossoms and longer days. The Bradford Foundation had grown beyond anyone's expectations. They now operated 7 community centers in Portland and had helped launch similar organizations in 24 cities across America. Katie was finishing 8th grade. Her grades were excellent. She had been accepted into an advanced program at one of Portland's best high schools. The education fund Thomas had established continued to grow, ensuring she would have no barriers to college. Helen's health remained strong. She now directed educational programs for all 7 community centers, training volunteers and developing curriculum. She loved the work and the purpose it gave her. Michael and David were engaged. They had taken things slowly, rebuilding trust and communication. David had moved to Portland and now worked alongside Michael on foundation legal matters. They planned to marry in September. Thomas looked and felt years younger than he had a year ago. The darkness that had consumed him after Rachel's death had lifted. He still missed his daughter every day, but now the memories brought more smiles than tears. On a warm Saturday in late April, the foundation held a celebration marking 1 year since Katie had returned the wallet. They organized the event at a park near the river, with food trucks, music, and activities for children. Over 1,000 people attended. Families who had been helped by the foundation. Volunteers who gave their time. Donors who contributed money. Community leaders who partnered on programs. They all gathered to celebrate what had been accomplished. Thomas stood on a small stage with a microphone. 1 year ago today, a 12-year-old girl made a choice. She found my wallet with $3,000 inside. She was desperate for money. Her grandmother was sick. They were struggling to survive. But Katie Monroe chose integrity over convenience. She returned the wallet. The crowd applauded. Katie, standing with Helen near the stage, felt her face flush. Thomas continued. That one choice changed everything. It changed my life by pulling me out of grief and giving me purpose. It changed Katie and Helen's lives by connecting them with support. It changed hundreds of families' lives by inspiring the creation of this foundation. And it has changed communities across America by showing that kindness and integrity still matter. He gestured for Katie to join him on stage. She climbed up reluctantly, not comfortable with attention, but understanding why it mattered. Katie, I want to present you with something. Thomas pulled out a framed document. This is a proclamation from the city of Portland declaring today Katie Monroe Day. A day to celebrate integrity, kindness, and the power of doing the right thing. Katie took the proclamation with shaking hands. The crowd cheered and applauded. I also want to announce something else, Thomas said. The first Rachel Bradford Character Scholarship will be awarded today. This scholarship provides full college tuition for a student who demonstrates exceptional integrity and community service. And the inaugural recipient is Katie Monroe. Katie gasped. She had not expected this. Tears filled her eyes as Thomas handed her another document. You earned this, Katie. Not because of our relationship, but because you exemplify everything this scholarship represents. The selection committee reviewed applications from across Portland. Your work with the recycling program, your leadership of the youth committee, your commitment to helping others, and most importantly, your integrity, made you the clear choice. Helen joined them on stage, crying happy tears. She hugged Katie tightly. I am so proud of you, sweetheart. So very proud. After the ceremony, people lined up to congratulate Katie. Some she knew well. Others were strangers who had been inspired by her story. A woman approached with 2 young daughters. Katie, I wanted you to meet my girls, Emma and Sophia. I have been teaching them about your story, about how you chose to do the right thing even when it was hard. The girls looked up at Katie with wide eyes. Emma, who looked about 8, said, You are my hero. I want to be brave like you. Katie knelt down to the girls' level. You know what? Being brave is not about never being scared. It is about doing the right thing even when you are scared. You can be brave every single day by making good choices. Like returning something you find. Sophia asked. Exactly. Or standing up for someone being bullied. Or telling the truth even when lying would be easier. There are lots of ways to be brave. After the woman and her daughters walked away, Helen smiled at Katie. You are good with children. You should consider teaching. Maybe. Or maybe I will work in non-profit management. Or environmental science. I have lots of options now. You do. That is the beautiful thing. You have unlimited potential. As the afternoon wore on, Thomas found himself surrounded by board members and community leaders. They discussed expansion plans, new programs, and sustainable funding strategies. The foundation had grown beyond what any of them had imagined. Michael and David worked the crowd together, talking to donors and volunteers. They looked happy and secure in their relationship. David had proven himself through consistent support and genuine care for Michael's well-being. Margaret set up a booth with photos documenting the foundation's first year. Pictures showed the transformation of community centers, families receiving help, children in programs, and volunteers at work. The vigil story was powerful. As evening approached and the celebration began winding down, Thomas gathered his family together. Helen, Katie, Michael, David, and Margaret stood in a circle near the river. I want to thank all of you, Thomas said. This year has been the most meaningful of my life. You are my family, not by blood, but by choice and love. And that makes it even more special. We are grateful for you too, Helen said. You changed our lives in ways we can never fully express. Katie looked around at the faces she loved. Mr. Bradford, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you still miss Rachel? Thomas was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. I do. I miss her every day. But it is different now. Before, missing her felt like drowning. The grief was so heavy I could barely breathe. Now, missing her feels like remembering someone I love deeply. The grief is still there, but so is gratitude for the time we had. He looked at Katie. You did not replace Rachel. Nobody could. But you reminded me that life still has meaning. That I could still love people. That Rachel's death did not have to be the end of my story. It could be the beginning of a new chapter. I am glad I could help. You did more than help. You saved me. Michael spoke up. Katie saved all of us in different ways. She gave Dad purpose. She showed me that vulnerability and connection are strengths, not weaknesses. She reminded us what family really means. David added, and I never even met Katie before a few months ago, but her story inspired me to fix my mistakes and fight for love. So she saved me too. Katie felt overwhelmed by their words. I just returned a wallet. No, Helen said firmly. You made a choice. A hard choice. A choice that required courage and integrity. Do not minimize what you did. As the sun set over the river, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they stood together in comfortable silence. Each of them thinking about the journey that had brought them here. Thomas thought about Rachel and how proud she would be of the foundation built in her memory. He thought about how far he had come from the dark place he had been in a year ago. Michael thought about how he had reconnected with his father and found love again. How purpose and vulnerability had healed wounds he thought would never close. Helen thought about her second chance at health and her renewed sense of purpose. How teaching literacy brought joy to her days. How Katie's bravery had saved them both. Katie thought about the wallet and the choice that changed everything. How one moment of integrity had led to a year of blessings. How doing the right thing had brought her a family, a future, and a purpose. Margaret thought about how the empty, sad house had been filled with life and laughter again. How watching Thomas heal had been a gift. How this chosen family had become her family too. The next morning, Katie woke early. She had something she needed to do. She got dressed quietly and left a note for Helen saying she had gone for a walk. Katie walked to the grocery store on Morrison Street. Behind the building was the dumpster where she had found Thomas's wallet a year ago. She stood there for a long moment, remembering that rainy evening. She had been so scared that night. So desperate. So alone. She had held that wallet and felt the weight of an impossible choice. But she had chosen right. And that choice had led to miracles she never could have imagined. Katie pulled out her phone and took a picture of the dumpster. It seemed fitting to document the place where everything changed. Then she turned and walked home. At the apartment, Helen was making breakfast. Where did you go, sweetheart? I went back to where I found the wallet. I wanted to see it again. To remember. And what did you feel when you saw it? Grateful. So very grateful. They ate breakfast together, talking about Katie's plans for high school, about Helen's upcoming literacy conference, about life. The doorbell rang. Thomas stood outside with a box of pastries from their favorite bakery. I thought we could have a quiet morning together, he said. Just the three of us. They sat in the living room, eating pastries and drinking coffee. They did not talk about the foundation or programs or plans. They just enjoyed each other's company. Do you remember what you said to me the first time you came here? Thomas asked Katie. I think I said I found your wallet and wanted to return it. You did. But you also said you did not take anything. And I remember thinking, this child is special. She has integrity that most adults lack. I was just doing what Grandma taught me. And your grandmother did an excellent job. Thomas turned to Helen. You raised a remarkable young woman. Rachel would have liked her very much. Thank you, Thomas. That means everything to me. As the morning turned to afternoon, they looked at old photos together. Helen showed Thomas pictures of Katie's parents, of Katie as a little girl, of happier times before tragedy struck. Thomas showed them pictures of Rachel. As a baby, as a teenager, as a young woman. He told stories about her, some funny, some touching. He could do that now, without falling apart. She would be 25 this year, Thomas said, looking at a photo of Rachel on her 21st birthday. I wonder who she would have become. What she would be doing. She would be doing something good, Katie said with certainty. She would be helping people. Like you are. I hope so. I tried to live in a way that would make her proud. You succeed every day, Helen said. Everything you do honors her memory. Later that week, Katie gave a presentation at her school about integrity and choices. The principal had invited her to speak to the 8th grade class during an assembly. Katie stood on the stage looking at 200 students. Some looked interested. Some looked bored. Some looked skeptical. A year ago, I made a choice, Katie began. I found a wallet with $3,000 in it. I was poor. My grandmother was sick. We needed that money desperately. I could have kept it and nobody would have known. She had the audience's attention now. They leaned forward, listening. I almost did keep it. I stood there holding that money and thought about all our problems it would solve. But then I thought about my grandmother, who taught me that who you are matters more than what you have. I thought about the person I wanted to be. Katie paused, looking around at the young faces. So I returned the wallet. And that choice changed my life completely. Not because I got rewarded, though I did, but because I became someone I could be proud of. Someone who keeps her values even when it costs her. She walked to the edge of the stage. Every single day, you make choices. Small ones and big ones. Whether to cheat on a test or study harder. Whether to stand up for someone. Being bullied or look away. Whether to tell the truth or tell a lie. Those choices define who you are. A student raised his hand. But what if doing the right thing hurts you? What if it makes your life harder? It might, Katie admitted. Doing the right thing is not always easy. Sometimes it costs you something. But here is what I learned. When you do the right thing, you get to keep your integrity. You get to look at yourself in the mirror and feel good about who you are. And that is worth more than money or convenience. Another student asked, what if you already made bad choices? Is it too late to change? It is never too late to change. You cannot undo the past, but you can choose differently going forward. You can decide right now, today, to be a person of integrity. Every moment is a chance to start fresh. After the assembly, several students came up to talk to Katie. They shared their own struggles with choices and integrity. Katie listened to each one, offering encouragement and understanding. One girl named Jenna lingered after the others left. Katie, I need to tell you something. I stole money from my mom's purse last week to buy something I wanted. After hearing you talk, I feel terrible. Have you told your mom? No. I am scared. I understand being scared. But keeping that secret is going to eat at you. Tell your mom the truth. Apologize. Offer to pay her back. It will be hard, but it will also free you. Jenna nodded, tears in her eyes. You are right. I will tell her tonight. Thank you. As Katie walked home from school that afternoon, she thought about how far her influence had spread. From Marcus in Seattle to Jenna at her own school. People were making better choices because of her story. That weekend, the foundation held a board meeting to discuss long-term strategy. They had been operating for a year. They had proven the model worked. Now they needed to think about sustainability and growth. Thomas opened the meeting. We have accomplished more this year than I ever imagined. 7 community centers in Portland. 24 affiliated organizations across the country. 847 families directly served. Countless more impacted indirectly. But we cannot rest on our success. We need to plan for the future. Helen presented data on the educational programs. Reading levels are up significantly among participating children. We are seeing measurable improvement. But we need more trained volunteers to expand to additional schools. Ms. Johnson discussed operational challenges. We are stretched thin. We need more staff. We need better systems. We need sustainable funding sources beyond donations. Michael outlined legal considerations. We also need to think about succession planning. Right now, the foundation is deeply connected to Dad's personal story and Katie's story. That is powerful for fundraising and awareness. But what happens in 10 years? 20 years? We need to build something that outlasts any individual. Katie listened carefully to the discussions. She was the youngest person in the room, but her voice was valued. When they discussed youth programming, everyone turned to her for input. I think we should create a youth advisory board, Katie suggested. Young people from each community center who help shape programs for their peers. We adults think we know what kids need, but kids themselves know better. The board loved the idea. They tasked Katie with developing a proposal for the Youth Advisory Board structure. As the meeting ended, Thomas pulled Katie aside. You have really grown this year. Not just as a person, but as a leader. I am impressed by your maturity and your ideas. I had good teachers. You and Grandma and Michael. You all showed me what leadership looks like. We showed you what we know, but you brought your own wisdom to it. Do not sell yourself short. That evening, the family gathered at Thomas's house for dinner. It was Memorial Day weekend, and they had invited several friends to join them. The house buzzed with conversation and laughter. After dinner, they gathered in the backyard around a fire pit. The spring evening was cool but pleasant. Stars emerged as darkness fell. I want to propose something, Michael said, standing up. David and I have been talking. We want to get married in September, as planned. But we want to do it here, at Dad's house, with all of you present. Our chosen family. We would be honored, Helen said immediately. I call being a junior bridesmaid, Katie added, making everyone laugh. Actually, we were hoping you would do a reading during the ceremony, David said. Something about love and family and choosing each other. I would love to do that. Thomas raised his glass. To Michael and David. To love and second chances. To family in all its forms. They all drank, and then sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire crackle and listening to the sounds of the spring night. Katie looked around at the faces illuminated by firelight. These were her people. Her family. Not the family she was born into, but the family she had found through an act of integrity. A year ago, she had been alone and scared, digging through trash bins. Now she sat surrounded by love, security, and purpose. The contrast was staggering. What are you thinking about? Helen asked, noticing Katie's thoughtful expression. Just how much has changed. How different everything is now. For all of us, Thomas agreed. 1 year ago, I was existing but not living. Now I have reasons to get up every morning. I have people I love. I have work that matters. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Katie had not found your wallet? Margaret asked. Or if she had kept the money? I try not to think about that, Thomas said. It is too sad to imagine. I might still be lost in grief. Katie and Helen might have. I cannot even finish that thought. But she did find it, Helen said firmly. And she did return it. And here we are, together, happy, making a difference in the world. That is what matters. Katie thought about alternate timelines. What if she had been searching behind a different grocery store that day? What if she had given up on collecting bottles? What if she had convinced herself that keeping the money was okay? But she had not done any of those things. She had made the choices she made. And those choices had led her here. I believe things happen for a reason, Katie said. I do not know if it is fate or God or just coincidence. But I was meant to find that wallet. I was meant to meet Mr. Bradford. We were meant to become family. I believe that too, Thomas said. Rachel sent you to me. I truly believe that. She knew I needed saving and she sent an angel. As the fire burned down to embers, they began to say their good nights. Michael and David left together. Margaret retired to her room. Soon it was just Thomas, Helen, and Katie sitting in the glow of the dying fire. I want you both to know something, Thomas said quietly. When I die, whenever that is, the foundation will continue. I have established it as an independent organization with sustainable funding. The work will go on. Thomas, you are healthy. You have many years ahead of you, Helen protested. I know, but I need to say this. The foundation is not about me. It is about the values Katie demonstrated. Integrity, kindness, community. Those values will outlast all of us. That is what I want my legacy to be. He looked at Katie. And I have put money in trust for you, beyond the education fund. When you turn 25, you will receive it. Use it wisely. Use it to continue making a difference. Mr. Bradford, you have already given me so much. I have given you opportunities. You have earned everything through your own character and hard work. I am just making sure you have resources to do even more good in the world." Helen wiped tears from her eyes. "You are a good man, Thomas Bradford. A truly good man." "I try to be. You and Katie make me want to be better every day." The next morning, Katie woke early. She had developed a habit of morning runs, enjoying the quiet streets before the city woke up. She ran past the community center, past her old apartment building, past the grocery store where she had found the wallet. As she ran, she thought about her future. High school would start in a few months, then college, then a career. She had so many options now, so many paths she could take. But no matter what she chose to do, she would always remember the lesson of the wallet. Integrity matters. Character matters. The choices you make define who you are. Katie returned home to find Helen already up, making breakfast. They ate together, reading the newspaper and talking about their plans for the day. "Grandma, do you ever miss the old days? Before all of this?" Helen considered the question carefully. "I miss some things. Life was simpler, quieter. But I do not miss the struggle or the fear. And I do not miss seeing you carry burdens no child should carry. So no, I do not wish we could go back. I am grateful for where we are." "Me too, even though the attention is sometimes overwhelming." "That is understandable. But remember, the attention is not really about you. It is about what you represent. You are a symbol of integrity in a world that often feels like it has lost its way. People need that symbol. They need to believe that good people still exist." Katie understood. Her story mattered not because she was special, but because she represented values that everyone could aspire to. That afternoon, Katie attended a youth committee meeting at the community center. 15 young people had gathered to plan their summer service projects. "We could organize a neighborhood cleanup," one boy suggested. "Or start a tutoring program for younger kids," a girl added. Katie listened to all the ideas, then spoke up. "What if we did something that addressed a root cause of poverty? Like collecting professional clothes for people going to job interviews? Or teaching financial literacy?" The group loved both ideas. They decided to do a professional clothing drive and partner with adults to teach financial literacy workshops for families. As the meeting ended, Derek approached Katie. "You have really grown as a leader this year. Remember when you first joined this committee? You barely spoke up." "I remember. I was intimidated by everyone. And now you are running the show. In a good way. You bring people together. You make everyone feel heard. That is a gift." Katie felt proud but humble. She had learned that leadership was not about having all the answers. It was about listening, empowering others, and staying focused on shared goals. June arrived with warm weather and the end of the school year. Katie finished 8th grade with honors. She had been accepted into the advanced program at Lincoln High School and would start in September. The foundation held a summer kickoff event, celebrating the beginning of expanded programs for out-of-school youth. They had hired additional staff and were offering job training, arts programs, and academic support. At the event, Thomas made a surprise announcement. "I want to introduce you to someone special. This is James Richardson. He is the new executive director of the Bradford Foundation. James comes to us with 20 years of nonprofit leadership experience. He will take over day-to-day operations, allowing me to focus on strategic vision and fundraising." The hire was strategic. Thomas was 64 now. He wanted to ensure the foundation could continue without depending solely on him. James was dynamic, experienced, and deeply committed to the mission. After the announcement, Thomas seemed lighter. He had been carrying the weight of operations for a year. Now he could step back slightly, focusing on what he did best. That evening, the family celebrated at a nice restaurant downtown. Thomas, Michael, David, Helen, Katie, Margaret, and now James joined them. To new beginnings, Thomas toasted. To sustainable systems. To a foundation that will outlast all of us. To family, Katie added. The one we are born into and the one we choose. They clinked glasses and drank. The conversation flowed easily, moving from foundation talk to personal updates to shared memories. As dessert was served, Katie's phone buzzed. She looked at the message and gasped. "What is it?" Helen asked. "It is from Marcus. The boy from Seattle who kept a wallet. He found the owner and paid them back. He says he feels free for the first time in months. Katie showed them the full message. Katie, I found the man whose wallet I took. I told him everything. I have been working and saved up the money to pay him back. Today I gave him $500, every penny I took. He was mad at first, but then he saw how sorry I was. He forgave me. Thank you for inspiring me to make things right. You changed my life. That is beautiful, Helen said, tears in her eyes. The ripples keep spreading, Thomas observed. You inspired Marcus. Marcus will inspire others. On and on it goes. That is how we change the world, Michael said. One person at a time. One choice at a time. As summer progressed, Katie stayed busy with youth programs, committee work, and her job at Bradford Industries. She also spent time just being a teenager, hanging out with friends, going to movies, and enjoying her freedom from academic pressure. One afternoon in July, Katie and Helen were at the park when they saw a young girl, maybe 10 years old, digging through a trash can. The girl pulled out aluminum cans and put them in a bag. Katie's heart clenched. That had been her a year ago. She approached the girl gently. Hi, I am Katie. What is your name? The girl looked suspicious. Why do you want to know? Because I used to collect cans too. I know how hard it is. The girl's expression softened. I am Amy. I am trying to help my mom. She is sick and we need money for her medicine. Katie looked at Helen, who nodded. They both knew what needed to happen. Amy, I want to help you. Can you tell me more about your mom's situation? Over the next hour, Katie learned that Amy lived with her single mother, who had diabetes but could not afford insulin. They were struggling desperately, just like Katie and Helen had been. Katie called Thomas immediately. Within 2 hours, they had Amy's mother at the doctor, her insulin prescription filled, and a plan in place for ongoing medical care through the foundation. Amy cried with relief. How can we ever thank you? By paying it forward someday, Katie said. When you are stable and strong, help someone else who is struggling. That is how we create change. That evening, Katie told Helen about Amy. It felt like looking at myself from a year ago. That could still be me if you had not taught me integrity. If I had not returned that wallet. But it is not you. You made good choices, and now you get to help others make good choices too. That is the beautiful cycle of kindness. As August arrived, preparations began for Michael and David's wedding. It would be a small ceremony in Thomas's backyard with about 50 guests. Katie helped with planning, offering ideas for decorations and music. She also worked on the reading she would do during the ceremony, wanting it to be perfect. The night before the wedding, the family gathered for a rehearsal dinner. Thomas stood to make a toast. A year ago, I did not think I would ever feel joy again. I certainly did not imagine my son would be getting married, or that I would have this beautiful chosen family around me. But here we are, celebrating love and second chances and the power of community. He looked at Michael and David. You two found your way back to each other. You did the hard work of rebuilding trust. You chose love even when it was risky. I am so proud of you both. Then he turned to Katie and Helen. And you two showed me that family is not always blood. It is people who show up, people who care, people who make you want to be better. You saved my life. You saved ours, Helen replied. We saved each other. That is what family does. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. Thomas's backyard had been transformed with flowers, chairs, and an arch where Michael and David would exchange vows. 50 people gathered, including foundation board members, community center families, and close friends. Everyone felt the significance of the moment. The ceremony was beautiful and personal. Michael and David had written their own vows, promising to support each other through hard times and good times, to communicate honestly, to choose love every day. When it was time for the reading, Katie stepped forward. She had chosen to write something original rather than use a traditional text. Love is not just a feeling, Katie read. It is a choice. A choice to show up. A choice to be vulnerable. A choice to forgive. A choice to try again. Michael and David chose each other once. Then they chose each other again after being apart. Today, they choose each other forever. That is what real love looks like. Not perfection, but commitment. Not ease, but effort. Not avoiding hard times, but walking through them together. She looked up at Michael and David, tears in her eyes. You taught me that second chances are worth taking. That love is worth fighting for. That family can be rebuilt even after it breaks. Thank you for showing me that courage looks like trying again. There was not a dry eye in the audience. After Katie sat down, the ceremony continued. Michael and David exchanged rings and kissed to thunderous applause. At the reception, people ate, drank, and danced. Katie found herself sitting with Amy, whom Thomas had invited to the wedding with her mother. This is beautiful, Amy said, watching the celebration. Everyone is so happy. They are. Love does that. It brings joy. Katie, I wanted to tell you something. My mom got a job. A good job with health insurance. We are going to be okay. Because of you and Mr. Bradford. I am so happy for you, Amy. Now you can just be a kid instead of worrying about adult problems. I am going to be like you when I grow up. I am going to help people. Katie smiled. The world needs more people who help. I think you will be great at it. As the evening ended and guests began leaving, the family gathered one more time. Thomas, Michael, and David, Helen, Katie, and Margaret stood in a circle, holding hands. We did it, Michael said, looking at his new husband. We actually did it. We did, David agreed. And it would not have been possible without all of you. You are our family. Thomas squeezed Katie's hand. 1 year ago, everything changed because of a choice Katie made. Today, we celebrate another choice. The choice to love, to commit, to build a life together. Every day is full of choices. Let us always choose kindness. Always choose integrity. Always choose love. Always, they echoed. As the stars came out and the evening grew late, Katie looked around at her family. They had all been broken in different ways. Thomas by grief. Michael by loss and heartbreak. Helen by illness and poverty. Katie by circumstances beyond her control. But they had found each other. They had healed together. They had built something beautiful and lasting. All because one girl chose to return a wallet. Katie understood now that her choice had been about more than money. It had been about who she wanted to be. It had been about maintaining her integrity even when tested. It had been about trusting that doing the right thing mattered. And it did matter. More than she ever could have imagined. As the family finally said their goodnights and began to leave, Thomas pulled Katie aside one last time. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For being you. For making the choice you made. For saving me. For reminding me that goodness still exists in the world. Katie hugged him tightly. Thank you for seeing me. For helping us. For becoming family. Always family, Thomas said. No matter what. Always. Katie walked home with Helen through the quiet Portland streets. The city looked peaceful under the streetlights. Summer flowers bloomed in gardens. Somewhere in the distance, music played. Grandma, Katie said, I have been thinking about my future. About what I want to do with my life. And what do you want to do? I want to help people. I do not know exactly how yet. Maybe through non-profit work. Maybe through business. Maybe through teaching. But I know I want to spend my life making things better for others. Helen smiled. You are already doing that, sweetheart. And you will keep doing it, no matter what career you choose. Because that is who you are. Someone who sees people who need help and helps them. They walked the rest of the way home in comfortable silence. At their apartment, Katie got ready for bed. She looked out her window at the Portland skyline, thinking about all that had happened. 1 year. 12 months, 365 days. So much had changed. So much had been gained. So many lives had been touched. And it all started with one choice on a rainy evening behind a grocery store. Katie climbed into bed, grateful for every moment, every challenge, every blessing. She thought about Thomas and Michael and Margaret. She thought about Helen, sleeping peacefully in the next room. She thought about the families, helped by the foundation. She thought about Amy, who now had a chance at a better life. The ripples kept spreading. The circle of kindness kept expanding. One choice had created waves that touched thousands of lives. As Katie drifted off to sleep, she made a promise to herself. She would keep choosing integrity. She would keep choosing kindness. She would keep choosing to do the right thing, even when it was hard. Because that was who she wanted to be. That was who her grandmother had raised her to be. That was who she would always be. A girl who returned a wallet and changed the world.